Hi, good morning. Welcome to The Big Issue. The Big Issue is live on 97.3 City FM, also live on ChannelOne TV and on our socials. We are happy to have you join us this morning. It's a wet morning, but we are here to serve you some good discussion, conversation, analysis, and what have you. This morning, we're looking at two issues. There's been a number of things regarding election 2024. This one, Fitch Solutions, is projecting a convincing win for the NDC. We're asking what can change before the December polls. We know Dr. Bawumia has been busily running around the country, selling his message to the people. Alan Chemantin and his GTP have also been around the country trying to win the hearts and minds of people. Cheddar, Nana Kwame Bediako, also appears to be making some inroads, at least. The latest Global Info Analytics survey suggests that himself and Alan were doing and they also say that even though there is possibly going to be a change of government, the policy direction of the country will not change. The government will continue with the IMF program and a few other things. We'll look at all of that and ask if anything can change. What can tilt this for the ruling party? Indeed, the NPP has said they will win this election based on a simple strategy. What is that strategy? We will also dovetail the discussion into public engagement, how the electorate could be engaged better to better understand the issues and vote, maybe proverbially, wisely. The issue about debates, is it really the thing we want to do? Don't you want to see Dr. Bawumia, Alan Chemantin, Cheddar, and John Mahama on the same debate platform? But is that really necessary? Is it the way to go? What will it add to the discussion? Should it form part of strategy of a team to say, I will join, I will not join, or people of Ghana should say, well, this is what we want, and that is what people must have. We'll look at that as well. Okay, this week, the citizens chalk yet another victory. This LI before Parliament, the Road Traffic Amendment Act, which sought to amend quite a number of regulations in the regulations as we have today, including the use of siren by certain classes of people, politicians, members of parliament, members of the Supreme Court, etc. And the fact that once these gadgets are fixed on the cars, they will not be subject to any speed limits. All of those were in the regulations which was before Parliament. Parliament eventually, or the government eventually had to withdraw it because they said because of engagement and other things. But the real issue is the citizens were not happy. And given that, you know, we've seen a few of these in the last few days or weeks, government had to withdraw it quickly, not to incur further uproar from the citizenry. We want to ask whether the people appear to be awakening. We saw the Senate and the hotel sales saga and how organized labor caused the deal to be botched. We are seeing the LI as well. What else would the citizens do? Is it a good thing? Is it dangerous? With the Arab Spring and all of that on our minds, what should we be doing to get it right? Are the citizens awakening now, or you think that it is too much? We'll delve into that and see what can be needed. Power is to the people. So this is what we'll be discussing this morning. I will take a short break. I will return. I will introduce my guests and then provide some updates, and then we'll get a discussion underway. My name is Salam Adonu. Join us on our social media handles, and we'll be happy to read your comments to the rest of the world. This is The Big Issue. You're welcome. You're welcome back. This is The Big Issue. My name is Salam Adonu. We are happy to come your way this morning on 97.3 City FM and, of course, Channel One Television. We are also on our social media platforms. We'll be happy to have you drop your comments under the video so that we can read them out to you. Our WhatsApp lines are quite active, very active indeed, on 020-444-7033, 020-444-7033, or 0549-986-996, 0549-986-996, and we'll be pleased to share your views with the rest of the world. Two issues we are looking at this morning. The issue about Fitch Solutions projecting a 54% win for the NDC, and also the Afrobarometer report, which says that Ghanaians are happy with democracy, even though they think that corruption has increased. Indeed, some 74% of Ghanaians think that corruption has increased. We'll look at all of this in context. Also, we will also deal with the issue of people's power. The Road Traffic Amendment Act, or Amendment Regulation, which was tabled before Parliament, has been withdrawn. The minister who withdrew it, the local government minister, indeed he wasn't the one who tabled it, but he withdrew it on behalf of his transport minister colleague. He cited issues of engagement, etc. But we know the real matter is that the people were not properly engaged. The people, they don't know that these particular regulations were, quote-unquote, smuggled into the main amendments before the House. And so the people are not happy that we elect you to go solve problems, and now you want to skip the problem. So why then did we elect you? If we have problems of traffic, and so we elect you to go make policies to make our lives better, we are in traffic, you drive by us in sirens, etc. How then do we make progress? I mean, it's part of the discussion we're having this morning. But in the meantime, research and data firm Fitch Solutions has predicted that the opposition NDC will defeat the governing New Patriotic Party in the upcoming December 7 general elections. Based in London, the firm has maintained this forecast consistently since last year, citing that 54% of surveyed respondents favor the NDC's candidate, John Mahama, to win the presidential election. Fitch Solutions attributed this prediction to the significant influence of the current economic conditions on voters' preferences. Moreover, the firm anticipates continuity in the country's policy direction under an NDC administration. All right, we'll move on to the other side of it, which is the Afrobarometer, which is a flagship report on democratic trends in Africa. It has found that the majority of young people are dissatisfied with democratic governance in their countries. The report, which surveyed 39 countries across Africa, indicates a growing disillusionment with democracy among the youth, who are increasingly leaning towards military rule as a temporary solution to the failures of civilian leaders. Various factors have contributed to this trend, including unemployment, corruption, and a lack of accountability. Very interesting developments there that we will look at this morning. To help us do the discussion this morning are Dr. Dumaku Kisi, Honorable Member of Parliament for Anyanso Utum. We have Yao Boabenya Asamoah Esquire, Campaign Strategies for the Movement for Change. Dr. Sharif Mahmoud Khalid, who is Associate Professor of Accounting and Finance and a member of the NDC's Economic and Finance Committee. Franklin Kujo, President, Imani Africa, and Dr. Kojo Asante, Director of Programs and Policy Engagement at the CDD, will also join us. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program. I start off with you, Boabenya Asamoah. How is it going with the Movement for Change? I see you in your Alachi Martin cap and all of that. How is it going?
That's the way it's going.
The GTP. But of course, the GTP doesn't, or the Movement for Change and Alan do not really feature in projections made by Fitch and other projections made by other people some time back. Of course, the movement may be catching on now. What do you make of Fitch's projection that this election will be for the NDC and John Mahama?
Let me say a very good morning to your viewers, perhaps across the globe. So I can't really say what time it is elsewhere, but good viewing and listening to everybody. First of all, let's acknowledge the power of polling. Never underestimate what a poll can do to influence and sway a people, particularly a literate population, which appears to understand what it's doing. And so, in looking at it, we must also then interrogate how you come about the polls and how you can use it to influence people. Perhaps, if it's not entirely fake, the one part of a poll you can ascertain objectively is the methodology, because then it's subject to peer pressure and peer review. But the line of questioning can always be pushed in such a way that you get the results you want, plus the data analysis, depending on whether you decide to analyze the cup full approach, or half full approach, or half empty approach. So having said that, How can Fitch tell us, Ghanaians, that Ghanaians are dissatisfied with the economy and so they will vote for NDC? And then turn around and tell us that the NDC is not going to do anything at all.
They didn't say that.
But that's what they said. They said the NDC are going to do exactly what the World Bank says.
They said policy direction like the IMF.
But that is what has brought us where we are. So no, that is why we are where we are. That is why we've gone to the IMF 17 times. The IMF is not going to transform us. The IMF is not going to deliver us from the kind of economic malaise and evil we sit in. So if somebody affiliated to the IMF, somebody who is tied deeply into the current international financial model, is relying on polls either here or as you've been saying since last year, to influence you to think that you should be voting for NDC because the polls say so. And the NDC has no plan, has no manifesto. After having governed us for 16 years, and with a candidate who's been president for at least 6 years and wants to come back and do only 4 years, he's not policy ready. Because
he was president for 4.5 years.
Well, how come president for 4.5 years?
4 years, and then some July to December, or July to January.
July when?
No, I mean, you're talking about John Mahama.
What year? July when?
Mills died in July. Yeah, so just 6 months plus the 4 years he did. So that's 4 years, 6 months.
So this man who's been president before, who's been vice president before, who's been a minister in the government, who has operated at the highest levels of decision making in this country, who understands the resource envelope we have, who is supposed to understand where we want to go, is being foisted onto the Ghanaian population by Fitch and other polls within the country. That though we Ghanaian voters are dissatisfied with what is going on, something he inflicted on us before took us to IMF, we will be content to have him back. And when we have him back, he's not going to do anything. He's just going to do what the IMF wants him to do. This is what Fitch is telling us. So what is the 24-hour economy? Nothing. No house behind it. So he's just going to sit here and tell us that there is no money. IMF says we shouldn't spend money. So I'm sitting here, but I'm taking my presidential palace expenditure, and I'm paying for the cars, and I'm paying for the sirens, and I'm paying for everything else except your needs, except your social needs, except your health needs, except the needs that will drive Ghanaians into the forefront of an economy that you build locally, an enterprise economy, which Alan Chematien will build. Look at the NPP. Yes, Fitch is right that the NPP is losing this election because they are running away from the economy. This election is about the economy and jobs. That's what both polls say. That's what Afrobarometer is saying. Afrobarometer is saying that, is it they who said 9 out of 10 think that they can't be doing the wrong direction? Yes. Why? Because of economy and jobs. But the economy has tanked. The Ghanaian economy has tanked. And there are no jobs because we are not creating jobs. We are not accumulating local capital. We are not putting the private sector within the frame where they can help as a catalyst to drive local industry. We are not changing the structure of our economy. All we are doing is sitting in it as it is and begging the IMF for handouts and crumbs. So the current government, nobody believes in them. They were supposed to fix the economy. They are the best so-called team to fix it. We listened to all the lectures. I was part of the lectures.
And your boss was part of the lectures.
Yes. We were all sitting there grinning.
Yes.
and then today, he's running away from the economy to digitalization. How, the whys, the whens.
But the understanding is that digitalization is supposed to facilitate economic growth. So, for example, the paperless ports. A lot of money which was going down the drain. Now, because of the paperless ports, we are told that that money is coming to the state, which is a good thing. Many other things like that.
So let's not get involved in who initiated paperlessness or otherwise.
No, it's the government. It's the government.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that if cumulatively, where we stand as an economy now was something to be proud of, the vice president, who is supposed to have managed the economy, will not be going around saying that he's going to change economic policies of his government when he becomes the government. You will be going around saying that I'll change the policies of my government when you give me power. He's part of the e-levy process. He's part of the taxes. You're doing paperless and you are imposing funny taxes.
We knew views he expressed way before the e-levy that he was not in support of it.
What I'm saying is that this economy is nothing that the MPP can stand on because it's the same route. It's not structurally different from what the NDC will do if they come. They also don't have a manifesto or a policy.
They have a 24-hour economy coming up in their manifesto, they say.
That is NDC. I've said that already. MPP hasn't produced a manifesto and a plan yet. Only Alan.
But they will.
Only Alan
what's the name? Osechi Mensah was leading that process.
A small movement against two huge parties with all the infrastructure, the institutions, and the benefit of governance over 16 years each. You sat down for one person, using his experience, his productivity, his understanding.
Maybe he has more time.
If Ghanaians want Ghana back, they should vote for transformation. Because the 24-hour economy doesn't tell you how. The digitalization economy doesn't tell you how. Only the great transformational plan tells you how.
Great.
So what Ghanaians, if you want your bonds back, if you want your bonds back, you vote for transformation.
Very
if you want a job after school, you vote for transformation. If you want this economy
to do well,
change
you vote for transformation.
Forever, in the way that benefits you politically, socially, and economically, you vote for genuine transformation.
Very well, Uncle, just a minute. So, Doc Adomaku Kisi, the Fitch report and a few others in recent times have not been very favorable to your party. How are you receiving this report from Fitch that the NDC will convincingly win by some 54%, and that the economy will be a major determinant in this particular matter? What do you make of it?
Well, let me also say a good day to our viewers and listeners across the globe. And let me thank you for the opportunity to be here. You have a very powerful platform, and I must commend you, Salom.
Thank you.
In terms of media work in this country, your contribution is known to many. I also plead with you to use this opportunity to thank my municipal health directors. Her name is Dr. Edwina Apia. Yesterday we did something on hepatitis B, which has a huge prevalence in this country. And unfortunately, we've been a bit silent on it. And she took the opportunity to train some midwives, about 30 of them yesterday, on the need to prevent mother-to-child transmission. And it so happens that July 28th is World Hepatitis Day. So this is just, a segue of some sort. And I'm also using the platform to encourage people to help people who can't afford the prevention, so that we do our very best to prevent. Now to the main topic, let me also say a hello to my senior colleague. In fact, the very first time I think I met him, he was seated in his car at Legon. And I made an effort to knock on his door. I think he was doing deliberations and phone calls in the car, at the back seat.
When he was MP?
Yes, he was MP then. And I hope he remembers. So I knocked on the window and I told him, I admire you a lot. And I'm at Anyanso too. At that time I had failed my first attempt. Okay. Yes, and I said hello to him. And it was very pleasant. Most MPs are pleasant, except for when you are bugging them about lucre. Yeah, so I've always respected Lawyer Boabing, and he's been an example for some of us. Now, with regards to Fitch, I must commend them. I believe in research work, and I think that in certain times you can get it right, and then in certain times you can get it wrong. Now, I'll base this off the fact that I've always been very wary about polls. I remember Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Classic scenario. If we talk of multiple levels of polls that were done in an election, which tipped Hillary Clinton to be winning that election, you then come to question politics and events leading up to the day of election. And I must say that I'm a bit wary about their results, because I am rather of the opinion that December 7th, for any strong party, be it the NDC or the MPP, to go beyond 52% will not be easy. That is my opinion, especially because of the trends worldwide. Looking at South Africa, what happened, India, what happened, England, and now even France. I'm doing that because Fitch, quote unquote, is an international organization, and the background of what I'm saying is based on international outcomes of other elections, not just in Africa, but worldwide. And looking at the trend of voters and their sophistication at this point in time, for anybody to pronounce a 54% win, it puts me in doubt. And I think that if even since the turn of time, I mean, it is more likely that people might change government because of the trend in this country, where after 2 terms, Ghanaians naturally would rather prefer to have a change in governance. Be it as it may, coming off of that, it gives the opposition parties some edge for doing nothing, let me put it that way, because of the nature of Ghanaians and our voters. Now, even with that, moving above 51%, I would be surprised. One, because admittedly, the likes of Cheddar, the likes of Movement, will grab some of the votes from either party. And that is the reason why I'm questioning a 54% even for the NDC under these circumstances. And I think at the beginning of the show, in other reviews, some of the strongholds of the NDC, Central Western, is being friendly to the smaller, parties that are coming up. And you cited the likes of, is it Bediako? Bediako, and then Alan Chemanting. So if the NDC's stronghold is now being favorable for these parties, and you tell me today that 54% will go to the NDC, that for me is spurious. So for the MPP, I must say that we will not take the reviews for granted. The appropriate thing for us to do is to keep at what we're doing and to demonstrate how the digital economy is still about the economy. And I must admit that in this post-COVID era, where the likes of Zoom have amassed several trillions of dollars, when the likes of Apple are trillion-dollar companies, if anybody is proposing a change in our economy, a movement from less communication, less commerce in the e-domain to commerce in the electronic domain, then people should not be surprised by the fact that digitalization is, quote unquote, an enhancement of Ghana's economy. And I think that there's an article on the fact that Africans are not doing enough in terms of e-commerce. And I believe that we ought to go beyond gold. We ought to go beyond our minerals and cocoa. And I think that digitalization gives us that opportunity to look into software companies, to look into all the many things that makes the Silicon Valley of America prosperous and ever more so prosperous. So I beg to differ when we undermine or forget to bring to bear the linkage between computerization and economic growth, and that new economy beyond cocoa, beyond gold, beyond bauxite, and that is my thinking. As we sit here, I must say that Elon Musk has made lithium a big deal now. Truly, Ghana is now on the verge of exploring and seeing how we can tap into lithium. And the lithium economy is also a digitalization economy. The two are intertwined, and more so, blue chip industry. So
I mean, just not to digress, but are we not making too much of this lithium? How much deposits do we have at all? Are we not raising the expectations of people beyond what really the particular discovery will offer? With this same with oil, people thought that oil was going to forever change drastically the fortunes of Ghana, but here we are. Drastically. The way it was projected at the time, it appeared like everybody was going to be fine. But here we are back to the IMF. Here we are.
Nigeria has huge oil deposits.
So that was a caution.
And Nigeria is not necessarily fine.
That was the caution to us at the time.
So I am of the opinion that, we're better off with oil. And we'll be better off with lithium. And I'm the first person who said that one day Elon Musk will visit Ghana because of lithium. And I'm still praying and hoping that he does. Now, one key thing out of today's discussion is the fact that I want GTP to appreciate the fact that computerization, digitalization is an economy of its own, and is an enhancement. And there's room, massive room, if policy direction encourages the ordinary guy. Listen, I was amused when I discussed computers with my cousin at MTN, and he was telling me how, forgive me, the Mamobis, the Nimas of this country are even huge consumers of data than East Legon. Isn't that amazing? And for whatever reason that Nima uses more data.
It's interesting to know what they use the data for.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that for whatever reason they use the data for. I mean, I can only assume that sports betting is one, and others. But my point here is that it's amazing, and hear me out, that I got to find out that the likes of, and not that I'm saying it's a shanty town, but who would have thought that a shanty town would consume more data than the Trasakus in this country? And that's why it is mind-boggling and mind-blowing. And I also think that based on this, miracles or shocking findings will come out of the digital economy if we only allow it. But in line with Fitch's work, I think that all of us political parties should be wary about the fact that, one, in days leading up to an election, one glitch, one statement, one mishap can tilt to the left, to the right, or to the center. And I am mindful of that because of what happened to Hillary, where one comment by the CIA boss just nailed her elections down. And even now, as we speak, the polls in the US are shaky, because of one, the health of Biden, and then two, this
Assassination.
Attempt to
Assassination
kill, Trump, which has, also turned his campaign into a more, positive, thing for him. And I think that between now and December, I'm not saying that something overly drastic will happen, but anything can happen. And this polls, can be a thing of the past. And 54%, I'm questioning it.
Great, but yes, I'll bring in Bobby. But just to push back a bit, the issue, so Hillary and all of that, but it's not a matter or a problem that is solved by incumbents. So, for example, your government is in power. You are more susceptible to scandals, etc. So, for example, this LI thing we will discuss soon. Yeah. Even though it's a parliamentary thing, and it went to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, which is chaired by an opposition member, it's become a problem for the government. Perceptions matter. And a lot of other things. This snake sale of hotels, botched or whatever you call it. Yeah. All of these grow to increase the disaffection for government. The opposition will always stand back. And you saw how the minority leader issued a statement that they did not support the airline,
for him.
And all of that. So the people will rather blame the government of the day, and the government of the day will suffer disaffection in times like this. So if things will happen, usually things will happen against the government of the day.
Well, I must agree that that is a possibility. But my key thing today is that, for me, from a mathematical standpoint, and based on trends in the rest of the world, I mean, France, sitting government lost 100 seats, but Macron is still in charge. My key point here is that, listen, there's even a possibility, and all of us can hear me out, that Baumia wins and MPP's numbers in parliament drops. That possibility is very, very possible.
Quite remote, though.
Considering how things have happened in other jurisdictions, the ANC literally lost many seats. They are still there. When you go to England, yes, the reverse happened. 401 or so plus to Labour, and then I appreciate what happened in England, but the unlikely thing happened in England. Although we were anticipating,
we knew that. I mean, the Conservatives with their candidates were not going to do very well.
Yes, but not in this craziness, and that's why I'm saying that. Who knows? I mean, our 138 may come to 102, and then we still retain power. That is also a possibility. I'm just making that argument. But
is it not an indication that the government has performed very poorly? Because when you talk to people around, that's what, it may not be scientific, but that's the general feeling, especially given the promise of the MPP in 2016 and even in 2020.
That is why I've been citing sitting governments and what has happened to them across the world. And I think that, unfortunately, many will go down because of the adverse impact of the pandemic. I choose my words carefully, not to mention.
Not to say COVID.
No, like I said, I'm not saying, you are saying. It reminds me of
and the other one, Russia, Ukraine.
Donald Trump's address. He says,
and now the Hamas.
he says, I'm mentioning Biden only once. I will mention his name again. So my point is that, listen, if we go into the annals of history later on, it will come to bear that many governments will and have suffered because of the pandemic. And even Donald Trump today says that he suffered that election because of perception about, the pandemic. So I must say that I know for sure that, yes, things haven't gone well. Our president has admitted that, things could have been better, except for the fact that he's the same person that quoted that, as for lives we can't bring back, but the economy, man can do something about. And I think that it is painful that Ghana's economy and jobs still are not at a very favorable point. And yes, the MPP will suffer some consequences due to that. However, I think there's also a brighter side because we've come out with some bold solutions to meet the challenges of our time.
Bold solutions, like apart from going to the IMF.
Well, the IMF is a bold solution within the MPP administration as of now. But I think that, the Vice President has proffered, and admittedly, has proffered some solutions moving forward. And some people are arguing that, why don't you implement them now? We must also appreciate that contractual arrangements and agreements are binding to an extent and have expiration dates. And beyond those expiration dates, something must happen. And if it wasn't so, then the NDC has no case in even coming, because if all the arrangements we've done with IMF are firmed up till 2028, then I think that it's a slam dunk thing. No government should come because everything is on lock, but that is not the case. There'll be some things that will change, from 2026, and as important as it is, decisions taken by the next government concerning life beyond 2026 will be very crucial for Ghana's future. But be it as it may, I think that polls are polls, and I am questioning 54% because of global trends and the fact that we have, two other, I wouldn't say troublesome parties up our end, but two very, vibrant, parties that are in some of our strongholds and taking, a little bit or doing some damage to the big parties.
Very well. Honorable Aboransama, you wanted to make a point
very
quickly.
I thought you would mention
COVID.
the Netherlands,
Okay.
where they now have an independent prime minister.
Well,
They are used to coalition governments, but they are stuck for 1 year. The parties, the traditional parties, are unable to
don't
decide.
expect me
So they brought together an independent. See, look at Senegal. Literally out of nothing.
He's a young guy.
It's a major change. Benin has switched to the independent presidential model. For the
Are
past
we
2
ready for
elections.
that this year? We will be ready sometime or someday.
We should be ready if we tune our minds to it. And that's why I'm going to tell you what Fitch is up to. And then we will realize that we need to transform. That's the only way we'll be ready. Transform with digitalization facilitating, not the primary process. So I'll tell you how. Fitch Solutions projects positive outlook for Ghana City. This is the Fitch who is telling you that the economy is so bad that people vote for NDC. Now he tells you that he's projecting a positive outlook for the Ghana City. Then what does he say? What does he say? Let me look at the story very quickly. Just the first paragraph of the story. What I'm trying to say is that, oh, come on. Shalom. Dr. Admako has taken the digital out of my phone. But essentially what he says is that the city is going to improve on improved investor confidence and higher dollar inflows from outside. It doesn't transform our economy. FDI. So far, we are not seeing that transformation, which will localize capital, which will utilize the energy and trainability of the youth in a leadership process that actually transforms us competitively. We will be transformed with digitization as a facilitator, but we need to actually create enough jobs where we are most competitive. And we are competitive in the value addition of what we currently send out raw. So we are competitive if we can transform our bauxite.
What the 1D, 1F was supposed to have done, which your boss,
It's
your
just
boss.
1D, 1F is just one aspect
boss
of the
led.
things Alan was leading. Now 1D, 1F stands alone. You have 10 other anchor industries that Mr. Chematin sets out, and they are all in the GTP. Mr. Chematin's approach.
But shouldn't you be looking at how well the 1D, 1F is done under him?
You have to look at it in the context of everything that has happened. It's just like the PSIs. How has it played out, and what has happened to it? You have to look at policy postures of the larger government. You have to look at the government's investment appetite and profile. If the government is interested in transformation through industrialization through 1D, 1F, it will put more money in 1D, 1F than, say, in NAPCO. You understand? So instead of putting 70 million cedis a month in NAPCO, you put 70 million cedis a month in building small and medium scale enterprises, which will sustain themselves and create more employment, rather than something that will not sustain anybody. And
but the people have to get by. I mean, so people have been home for many years, and
that
so
is
the
why
idea of NAPCO was to get them economically mobile, to get them to do things that will stimulate economic growth as well. Whilst doing that, it wasn't isolated.
Yeah,
so there's a You Start. There's a NAPE program, other programs of government to do the same thing.
So it comes back to where we are sitting. Are we transformed? You asked about 1D1F. That's what led to this. And I'm saying that if we are going to be transformed, we need to invest quality capital in industrialization, in value addition, in agricultural value chains, in markets, accessing markets. So Mr. Chematin creates the African Continental Free Trade Area. As we are sitting in the studio now, will You Start enable us access it? Will NAPCO enable us access it? You are saying NAPCO was a catalyst to spare. How was it going to do that when you were meant to be cycled out in 3 years? So the question is, how do we get to the stage where you, the Ghanaian, are able to export maize to Zimbabwe because of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which means that the farmer in my village, such as Masi, where maize is the biggest product, will have solid income throughout the year, and that sons of the soil in Masi will have jobs in a secondary industry, processing the maize that the first generation level produces, and then exporting it to Zimbabwe for foreign exchange, or even in cities. If you have a solid inter-African digital market transaction manager in terms of currencies, so you have PAPs. PAPs will change your cedis. If you send it to Zimbabwe, they will pay you in dollars, Zimbabwean dollars, but PAPs will pay you in cedis here, and everybody makes money. But the digitization facilitates the making of the money in the transition, because we are competitive in the area that we are now. How do we get more value out of gold? How do we get more value out of cocoa and other crops that we produce? How do we get more value out of bauxite? When we get these values, that is when it's like Ayensu starch. It's like Ayensu starch. Every food product in this world is based on starch. Every food product in this world. And 22%, Mr. Chematin discovers that 22% of the food crop produced in Ghana is cassava. That's nearly a quarter of what we produce. And that is starch. That can drive an entirely new economy, bigger than cocoa in Ghana. Bigger than cocoa. So he identifies it. A factory is built with support from farmers, 10,000 farmers, in a model of farmer-owned approach, government facilitating. That factory's product attracts a company no less than Nestle. International brand, Nestle. This is industrial transformation, which brings farmers on board, which brings Ghanaian youth to the energy on board, facilitated by digitalization. It's not digitalization primarily, but we are competitive there because we are producing the cassava. Now we add value to the cassava, and Nestle comes. After Nestle, Guinness Ghana comes. Imagine if we hadn't used politics to stop that process. Imagine if we had continued to invest in more cassava factories on a model of farmer-owned factories, and we had 10, 20, 50 of those factories. And we had 50 international food companies buying starch from Ghana because of the high quality of our starch. That is a whole new industry employing across board, strengthening agricultural production where we are competitive, improving processing where our youth will then become competitive because they will access new jobs, quality jobs that will pay them money, and then accessing markets that will bring us foreign exchange so we can have the money to build our roads and stop begging from the IMF. If cassava alone, cassava starch alone, can bring us $20 billion a year from 20 factories, why are we at the IMF begging for $3 billion? And the $3 billion, we are struggling to get in the tranches, 360 million. And the other day we hear that government is going to invest 8.2 million cedis in SMEs. Where is he going to get the money from? and the sword cutting that's going on for other roads, and where's the government going to get the money for? When you're begging for money from the IMF, you don't have a diversified economy. And that is what transformation is about. And that is why Ghanaians must begin to realize that it's not about Fitch, it's not about global info analytics, it's not about the opinion editorials that Fitch and others say and tell you to persuade you that the NDC is ahead.
They are polls that they did.
But that is why we are saying, and we are agreeing, I'm agreeing with Doc. That's how I started. That polls can be very influential. So you have to be on the alert. You have to know what that poll is looking for. If Fitch tells
so for you, what would have been a better reflection of what's on the ground in a poll?
Only December 7th can tell. Because you take every poll with a pinch of salt. I'm wearing this. You see what's on it?
Alan.
All the way here, even though it's raining, you have people selling by the roadside in raincoats who are knocking on my car window because of this. They want it. They want it.
They want the car.
Yes. So you are telling me that those people never met Fitch or Global Info Analytics or otherwise. You understand? They want it. It's raining. And I'm driving through the rain. They are wearing raincoats, and they can see the car and come and knock on the car.
They want it. They want the Alan
They
Cup.
want it.
Great.
So what we are saying is that the Ghanaian voter is mature and discerning. But the Ghanaian voter must be ready, like you said. Are we ready for independence? The Ghanaian voter must be ready to accept that the only way to economic independence is through transformation of our economy. And that to transform, you have to have a plan. And that plan must be based on an enterprise economy. An enterprise economy is private sector led, it's inclusive, it brings everybody on board, it mobilizes local capital, it has a minimal government input through facilitation. It offers you technology, skills, youth energy, and markets. When you have those things, then you can grow your economy.
Very well.
The youth will stop worrying about jobs.
Very well.
The youth will stop worrying about the economy. And so that is the only solution to what Fitch is telling us. Transform the economy. Vote for the man who has the key to transformation. That's Alan Kyerematen. His message is transformation. NDC are talking 24-hour economy. NPP are talking digitalization. Alan is talking transformation to an enterprise economy.
Very well. So let me welcome Franklin Kudjo to the discussion. But I want to prefix Franklin's presentation or his submission on the matter with Mike Kruninga's, and he's a senior analyst for the Sub-Saharan Africa Fitch Solutions, what he really said about Ghana in respect of the projection. So after this, I will speak to Franklin.
We believe that the opposition National Democratic Congress, or the NDC, is best placed to win the election. Multiple surveys have shown that the economy will be the most important point for voters in the upcoming election, which will give the ruling New Patriotic Party, or NPP, a disadvantage, given that the recent economic downturn happened under NPP leadership. So if you take a look at the at recent polls, which I've included on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see that the NDC's leader, John Mahama, is not only leading in the Volta OT and northern regions, areas typically favoring the NDC anyway, but also in swing regions and even in Akan regions, which usually lean towards the NPP. So as for now, it seems pretty likely that the NDC will manage to secure a majority in the December 2024 election.
All right, so that is the representative from Fitch Solutions, Mike Kruninga, speaking earlier in that interaction there. Frankly, does this come to you as any surprise at all? Does this confirm what you see on the ground and what other works have produced in the immediate past? And what also is your thinking around why Fitch is saying that the NPP may lose their election? I mean, in terms of what would drive that change in the economy?
Well, good morning to my good friends in the studio and yourself.
You don't want to unmute, Franklin.
Oh, I have actually unmuted. Can you hear me? Because I'm shouting here.
He's talking.
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. Okay, so good morning to my good friends in the studio, and good to see Yao wearing an Alan cap. I probably need to come for mine. Just I don't like the color of the cap. But anyway, look, elections are upon us, and I think for some time now, most elections have always been based on at least the economic outcomes, really. I mean, of course, good governance or bad governance also plays a role. But of course, if you really want to assess governance, governance is just the way public institutions use public resources to react to, unburdening the shackles around political uh, disadvantage, economic disadvantage, and maybe, if you like, cultural and social disadvantage. As long as this rubric holds, if we look at all the indices, and again, this is an exercise we can only do data, really. I mean, there's nothing about opinions, whether I like this party, I don't like this party. None of that matters at this juncture. And I think we are looking at the hard data. And if you look at the hard data against the rubric I've just laid out, well, economically, look, most of the indices are dancing around Baumia, by the way. And as you realize, so the exchange rate is dancing around him, for instance. The what's it called? The interest rates are dancing around the government entirely. Which one again? I mean, the cost of the interest rate I've mentioned already. The tax, exchange rate. The taxes are innumerable, annoying, suffocating, and downright killing. I've never for the life of me understood why we have all these gazillion number of taxes. But we actually pay a tax on government's own tax. It's amazing, really. If you look at the tax, it's amazing. And anyway, again, not anecdotal, nothing personal. Look, we did a study for the Ghana Netherlands Business and Culture Council, right? We surveyed close to almost 80 businesses of theirs in the country. Not long ago, by the way. This was just somewhere 2-3 months ago. In fact, I'm just reviewing the event report this morning. I've been busy. And I was looking at the data, and I asked myself, some of the businesses are saying 6 out of 10 Dutch businesses, originator businesses, are like, no, the cost of doing business is killing. I mean, it's just astronomically high. The exchange rate crisis, the high interest rates, the high inflation, and so it's making it very difficult for them to actually survive. And I suspect that goes for every Ghanaian, really. I mean, you know very well that the cost of doing business has gone high. The cost of almost everything has gone high. I told you the last time that when I'm purchasing food these days, I look at the weather. I wake up early morning, go around because of this scientific explanation that the earlier you buy food, the more you get. Which is true, really. I see noticeable increases in the gauge. So that's what I've been doing.
So per that logic, it would be great to buy fuel at this time because the weather is quite cold.
Oh, of course. Right now, dear, it will be you can buy at any time. Just that don't buy when the sun is high. In any case, that's my coping mechanism. There are others who are coping differently. And I think it beggars belief that we still aren't addressing the major issue, the elephant in the room. And I'm talking directly about of course, the other parties are speaking. Alan obviously has a beautiful GTP plan. I understand what he wants to do. But transformation is the word. If you really want to look at all the high octane spin going around, somebody say give me steer, somebody say 24-hour dance, all of these interesting slogans can only become fruitful if they are built around the issue of transformation. Because transformation is actually the bigger word. I mean, look, Yao spoke. How have we managed to transform what they call cassava into cassava starch? Never mind that. By the way, one of the reasons why the Alliance thing failed at some point in time was because at the time potato starch has also come on the horizon. Potato starch was cheaper than cassava starch, so it was one of the economic reasons why Alliance project actually failed. So it's not really just the politics. But I just want to say that wherever the point really is made, that the cassava, in our circumstances, could still have been transformational, but we could have still used it to drive our local industry, irrespective of what the global outcome is. we still could have done a bit more in transforming our education in such a way that, life cycles, life skills, and again, that's exactly what matters. Life skills, people earn a little bit here and there, add value to themselves, and they earn a little bit more. I seriously, I'm considering, if I have strength, going back to doing practical building. That's I did building construction for 3 years as part of my course in Lagos Tech. I never really got to do practical building, just to say, but I'm beginning to like the idea because I have all these crazy artisans who are either stealing or just messing things up here and there. Anyway, let me not digress. So back to the issue. So if you look at the data economically, we are in serious doldrums, and I applaud. I mean, Anta, great guy, he's doing well. By the way, did you see the letter from the ministry signed by my good friend Eva, telling the NAPCO people that, look, you claim you have money against the state. Anyway, we didn't employ you. Go to the presidency. Go and validate your claims, and then come back and see whether we can pay you. Interestingly, they received a letter in February. It is not that they're replying. Brilliant. Look, it's about time we also look at, and again, it speaks to the issue around serving fidelity to economic management and indeed managing the public purse. Having said the things I've said, one of the other index that matter in the rubric I laid just right now is about public use of resources, and here procurement is a very important matter. Look, most of the corruption cases that we've had so far, whether perceived or real, are mostly related to procurement. I don't have to begin to list a litany of them. I'm fed up. And the fact that there's actually zero action from my good friend Nanado from the center, it was actually worrying. Never mind, Baumia set up a value for money, started a value for money conference, so that at least we start valuing things before we get into procurement, before we even do things. But nothing, none of that way. Fiscal Council, they made them sleep. Fiscal Council could have reviewed most of the high investment related procurement plans that didn't go well, but none of that happened. So a combination of factors, and I told you the last time that the Ministry of Special Development Initiatives single-handedly bankrupted significantly this country. That's how come by 2019 the economic doldrums, economic challenges had already started occurring, because we wasted close to, you remember, 1 million per each constituency. Where did all that money go? You have all these dugouts for 115,000 dugouts costing 230,000 cities. All of these are a combination of hemorrhaging the economy to the extent that as we speak now, yes, Russia, Ukraine happened. Never mind, all countries were affected. I told you the last time Kenya was affected, right? Kenya's inflation is 4.8, official inflation. Lending rates are just around 15-17%. Even debt, look at the challenges they have. They just spend a third of their GDP servicing debt. But we at the point we were 104% to GDP servicing debt. So the debt iceberg that have been created essentially needed a whole lot of things to happen, and we're knocking heads. They said no, if anything, no haircut. After Uncle Shah to go to Charlie, they command the money from our pockets. Way right now. So at the end of the day, you look at it carefully, you realize that the indices people are referring to, all these guys who are saying 9 out of 10, CDD, Afrobarometer, Fitch, whatever they are saying, if you look at the data, you can't quarrel with it. We are friends in government. Guys, there's no better way of saying it. Me, you are my friend, but I have to tell you, you need to wake up and probably wear sackcloth, lie prostrate before us and say, we need to come back to the table, fix this economy, come with us, and stop shifting the blame. In fact, I'm beginning to believe that Nanado said that he doesn't know economics, and I think he confessed to all of us that there were certain gurus he was going to bring, and there was a solid team. Unfortunately, the solid team virtually melted our savings, melted everything else we created, and as we speak, we have become paupers in our own country. I believe, look, it is my good friend from the MP. Isn't it sad that a center-right party today has a gazillion number of taxes way beyond any communist enterprise would have thought of? I mean, I don't even understand what you guys are doing. Look at ATM, bumbling, going around shouting, cement people. How? Meanwhile, the data, he's not advanced a single economic data to suggest that people are colluding, and that's why cement prices are low. Meanwhile, he knows very well that the exchange rate is exactly what is considered. What is this? You can't live in that. You can't create another narrative at all. So, guys, this is where we are, and I think it's important that while we are listing the things we want to do, let's come back to the economic question. And transformation is the right word. Transformation underlined by sensible policies, pragmatism, honesty in public office, and if you like, meritocracy. Because if we don't do these things, guys, we are not going anywhere. As of the other conversations about the other ones had to do political stuff, look at the way Domelevo was yanked off. I don't know whether we are veering into all of that, but look, it's an indicator of how governance can be captured at the center. And even the Supreme Court, that was supposed to be the savior, delayed entirely until later, before they came to the rescue of Domelevo. Domelevo had already been gone. He could have died like that. I mean, so, Charlie, Adiano Yanka, we need to wake up and deal with this matter once. It's no longer about just coming to vote, elections. I'm fed up. Look, I told you the last time. I don't know if I'll end on this note. I think in 2005, I attended seminars in Gumesbach. Babin will know those Gumesbach seminars. Center-right thinking organizations like FNF used to organize. And I remember meeting a few guys one from Singapore, the other is from, three others are from the US, the UK, and I think Germany, right? Anytime, and we plan to meet every 2 years in a city somewhere closer, and then we just reminisce and then recollect memories and ask how our lives have become. In 2018, when we met, the Singaporeans said, "Oh, we had budget surplus. So everybody got like $1,000 back in." Said, "Hey, when you're $1,000, and they said, "Why you here surplus? Look, right? You not even hear of the word surplus before you even think of it." I only reported that another election, and we are going to have another election. And the time we met, we also just had another election. Elections are not transforming the economy. However decent, transparent they become, we become an electoral flag, a democracy just based on flags, but not democratic, So, Charlie, look this up.
Very well. Thanks so much, Franklin. We will take a break soon, but let me hear from Dr. Sharif Mahmood Khalid, who is Associate Professor of Accounting and Finance and a member of the NDC Economic and Finance team. So, Doc, welcome to the program. Of course, I realize you guys had a walk?
Yeah, we had a walk.
Which part of town was the walk?
We're moving from Spintex to Nungwa.
In this rain?
Yeah.
You're walking through the rain?
Yes. It tells you how determined we are to salvage the good people of that. As you can see, I have my paraphernalia.
I see. So Fitch is saying that.
I know Alan is being flagged in studio, so I thought to balance the equation.
That did look good.
I mean, Fitch is saying that your party stands quite a good chance.
Yeah.
54%, but that appears statistically difficult given the trends we've seen around, etc. And the major point they say is the economy.
Yeah.
Of course, economies have had difficulties. The same Fitch is saying that Ghana's economy, will show some positive outlook, or there's a positive outlook. So which is which? I mean, economy will do what they have. The building blocks are being put in place, and so no matter what happens, the economy will begin to pick up and do well. So it puts it in a bit of a difficulty. The percentage, as in what we've known in the past and what they are saying will happen, especially as other polls have said that Alan and Cheddar will be doing well, etc. One wonders why this big, margin for the NDC.
No, it tells you how dynamic polls are and how dynamic election sentiments are globally. I'm just not fixing or making it a Ghanaian affair. I'm looking at it from the global context, and I'll narrow down. Just look at the just ended election in the UK. Labour has been struggling for over decades to actually bring themselves up. And this is by far one of the most humiliating defeats the Conservatives have ever suffered. And the polls point out to this. Because what it will tell you is that some 5 years ago, statisticians or economic analysis will tell you that in very mature democracies, opinion polls or elections are very stark between main opposition parties and ruling government. So sometimes the margin is very tiny, right? That is very mature democracies. Also, over the years, in the last 3 years, the data points to the fact that when there's an abysmal performance, especially hinged on the economy, by an incumbent government, is catastrophic. And that's what Fitch is actually projecting. And for me, when you look at polls have different interpretations and impact. Sometimes they are caution, sometimes they tend to guide political parties to do the right thing, and sometimes they call the elections. Given the state at which we are within the electioneering campaign, with barely just 4 months to election, Fitch is calling the elections based on this poll. And it's hinged on the economy. Mind you, if you look at, it's a build-up of all the activities that have happened probably in the last 7.5 years, or 7 years plus, that is reflecting in this. Because Fitch comes from an economic perspective. And it's a whole ingredient. They are just not reflecting the voter pattern of people, they are reflecting the sentiments of people. So for me, it is not about what global info analytics say or whatsoever. This is the true reflection of the average Ghanaian's thoughts as far as the economy is concerned. Why is this happening? We're in a country where we've never, or in time past, as far as we can remember, our central bank has never posted losses. And we had a governor who is building a new headquarters under such economic climate, defending it as nothing. So it tells you, a moral suasion is one of the strategies we use at our central bank. So how could you hinge your central bank's functionality or moral suasion, and you think that losing losses or having a loss or posting losses amidst building a colossal central bank headquarters when you think it's around? We're not saying this, we're not justifying that it's wrong. What we're saying, the timing of it. Right? After which, what happened? You had domestic debt exchange. Banks were consolidated. I mean, you look at a bank like Unibank, it had big ticket clients like ECG and the likes of that. I mean, in finance, we say too big to fail institutions, SIFE institutions or strategic financial institutions. But what happened? We didn't even pay heed to make comparison. If we use the same strategy and test they used, stress test, for all these banks we collapse, we use that for ADB and some other banks today, will they survive it? These are the fundamental questions we need to be asking. And people have lost jobs, haven't recovered since this issue. You had a former Chief Justice picketing, albeit very late, pension pots. Amidst all of this, you were selling state hotels to a crony who appeared very arrogant about it.
To a company.
A crony. I'll put it that way. He was speaking to your network, wasn't he?
No, he was, yes.
Yeah, so he's a crony. So I wouldn't delink him from the company because he put himself up.
But the company and the
well, he could have gotten his PR unit.
If
he wanted to delink himself from it, you have gotten his PR unit or lawyers to speak on it. Once he put his face to it, we'll go and then attach that to him.
But legally,
you guys went after him.
Yeah,
we didn't go after him.
Legally,
we represented the good people of Ghana.
The argument was that legally they had checked all the boxes. There was nothing wrong with the process legally. And so once legally it had passed the test. So why has he pulled out? No, because people, I mean, organized labor and all of those guys. You see, this is the these are the shenanigans we will come to that this government has begun in the election year. Since when have they been paying heed to threats? No, but that threat was big. And organized labor shutting down the country.
E-levy wasn't a big threat.
No, but organized labor didn't shut down the country.
Parliamentarians to go to parliament and vote for it to go through.
But organized labor didn't threaten to shut down the country, and they actually started the first day they did.
Since when? The organized labor has been doing these things far too long.
But this was quite different.
Did they even listen to NAT when they strike?
No, but NAT
did they listen to NAGRAT when they strike?
But you had the
no, but
union.
Why are you putting the credit to organized labor? It was a collective.
No, but they represent Ghanaians. Yeah, so
including the minority. So Ghanaians generally. Talk about the collectiveness.
No, but the minority had always done it.
Yes.
The minority always threatened.
Let's not digress.
Always threatened. But it was when organized labor
he's being fair
with the force.
And I'm aiding him.
With the force of their convening power. They threatened.
So
the minority couldn't have called for a strike.
No, what I'm saying.
Nationwide.
No, but what I'm saying is that this is by far one of the most effective engagement, the demonstration, right? stakeholder
So if he
engagement and so
commends-
forth. So to commend anyone within the success of this, it's a collective. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
The
so
Greens
that's
support
fine.
NAGRAT. The minority support NAGRAT.
That's
In
what
its
I'm
fight. The Greens support NAT in
Yeah,
its
so
fight.
the point I'm making is that NAGRAT may be fighting the cause alone. NAT may be fighting the cause alone, or the teacher unions may be fighting the cause alone.
Yeah.
But I do not have JUSAC, for example, joining
This
them.
was
You do not
seismic.
have ICU, for example,
wasn't
joining
seismic.
them.
This was
You do not
seismic.
have.
Continuously we went after.
Yes, what I'm saying is that
And what-
the sheer magnitude of this
Yeah.
made it scary. And the fact that they were determined to carry it through.
Prosecute.
It is an election year. That's the only reason they're responding to some of these things.
And it's part of it.
Yeah, it's an election year, period.
It's part of
It's
what,
an election year,
It's
and
part of
yes,
how
that
you
is
get.
scared.
It's part of how you get governments to respond to
yeah,
things.
that's what I'm saying. It's an election year, so let's not forget about.
Yeah, so
the
organized
context.
labor did a good job.
Yeah.
You guys also did a good
We
job.
did a good job, and
But
the timing as well.
everything worked together
yes,
to get into
get
pull
it.
out.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Again, even like, to juxtapose that to some happenings around in terms of the economy. War-torn Libya, their sovereign wealth fund, right, is taking a hostile takeover of the very South African company that was managing Labadi Beach. They are doing so well enough to take over. So these are the
No,
happenings.
I mean, not to get
So-
into the
Cannot
hotel
use
discussion.
extreme
So what-
positions to justify.
No,
So
Yeah,
what I am
not
saying
get into
here,
the
no,
hotel
so what I'm
discussion
saying,
or
we're not
weak
getting into that.
leadership
So what I'm
generally.
saying is that this election is going to be fought on credibility of one man, who is Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. In the run-up to the MPP winning elections, he was given a free platform, which never happens in academia, right?
Free platform means
At the Central University College.
he was a lecturer there.
He wasn't a lecturer.
He was
They
a
say he
visiting
was a
lecturer.
visiting lecturer. As
He was
to
a
what
visiting
that
lecturer.
means.
Yeah, but so he was
As
a
to what
lecturer.
that
He
means.
was a visiting
Yeah, he
lecturer.
was a visiting lecturer. But as to
Yes.
what that means, right? Where he went and had, a self-talk of a public lecture on what good he could make of the economy, the valuation of the city, how he worked at the central bank and the money was there and what he could use it for, among all of this. If we take back his notes from those self-acclaimed lectures from the Central University College and juxtapose them to the happenings of today, can they birth any economic tangibles? Of course, no. So why is he not proving that? He's running away from being head of the economic management team. We have an IMF program that is unique in the history of Ghana. We can go to the IMF a million times, but this is a very unique IMF program we have. Why? Missing tranches. IMF facility. It's the easiest thing any government could do. A first-year associate can do this because it's all boilerplates, tick box exercises. And this government could not, with all the men they claim they have. Right? And what it has done to the economy in damaging it is that you have that local poultry farmer who gauges, because we are in a program, and one of the successes of the program, or I would say the positives of the program, is that, okay, let me gauge when the tranche comes in. If it comes in, the city gets a bit of respite. I can have my expansion. I can have my imports. I can have forex. I can have all of that. But we succeeded, or this government succeeded in disrupting the economy by not meeting their targets. So now nobody even looks at, I don't even know, or nobody can point to the tangibles that this program would have, except the discipline and my force on this government not to do some other stuff.
Very well.
Most programs come with moratorium on employment and the likes of that, and they're very draconian. Under Mahama, we had all of this. They haven't even had this. And they're struggling.
Perhaps they negotiated better.
Oh, negotiated better. If they negotiated better, it's a tranches deal that would have been coming in because they needed that more than any other thing. So how could that reflect a good negotiation?
Very well. So this is the big issue. We're on 97.3.
So for me, in Fish,
we are also on ChannelOne.
No, but so let me just
land,
wrap up.
Just
But
land
yeah,
quickly.
I want to
Take
make a
break.
passionate appeal to my good friend Franklin Kujo. I think he's making light of the issues these days sometimes when it comes to this government in the giggles and the laughs. Let him show the seriousness he has always shown so that we can
but
collectively...
he's always made his point.
Yeah, so
I mean,
he has always made it, but,
he's always made his
but
point.
the optics of it is important, right? We knew how he spoke in 2006. Well, I'm not saying he should be suited. What I'm just saying is that we see him as a collaborator, as a civil society wank, right? We need his voice to really get a government on his feet and to get a credible government elected.
I think he's always said what he said.
Yeah,
in the
which is
past.
good.
So
But
for
I'm just
example,
thinking that
on this matter of the SNIT, the SNIT hotels, he's always had a view as a liberal.
No, you don't get me. I think you're not getting me.
What I mean is, when it comes to a thing like that, and you expect him to speak like the way maybe he spoke before, the way you will speak, you won't get that because ideologically...
I'm not forcing that on him.
Ideologically, he belongs somewhere.
It is just a plea I'm extending as a collaborator
right,
in the stakeholder fight.
That's your call.
I'll give you his number after the
That's your call.
He owes me lunch, he knows.
I see, at Labadi Beach.
At Labadi Beach, we should make it up.
Bribery and corruption.
Frankly, that's your call. We'll take a short break. When we return, we will delve deeper into some of the other issues, including the Afrobarometer report. Don't go away. We're having a discussion around the Fitch solutions projection of election 2024 and what Afrobarometer has been saying in respect of what the views of Ghanaians and generally people of Africa are in respect of some democracy indicators, and Ghana specifically, a number of things. So, for example, in Ghana, 76% of people prefer democracy over any other kind of government. Also, 89% of people in Ghana reject one-party rule. 88% of people in Ghana reject one-man rule. 67% of people in Ghana reject military rule. 84% of people in Ghana say that elections are the best method for choosing leaders. 72% say that country needs many political parties. That's multi-party democracy. 69% of people in Ghana say that the turnover in political power is good for democracy, and quite a number of things. So, for example, they also made some comments on corruption, etc. Dr. Kojo Pompuni Asante is a director of policy engagement and advocacy at the CDD, and CDD and Afrobarometer have an interesting relationship. CDD or Afrobarometer is part of CDD. There's an interesting relationship between the two. And so they worked on this report across the continent of Africa, and he joins us on the line to give us some more insight on this. Hello, good evening. Good morning, Doc. Welcome to the big issue. Afrobarometer report, we've seen them a number of times already, but can you give us a general overview of this particular round, this particular one, which involves some 39 countries or so? Hello, Doc. Hello, Dr. Asante. We appear to be having some difficulty with Dr. Asante's line, but let me try again. Hello, Dr. Asante. Welcome to the big issue. We don't have... Doc, welcome to the big issue. We thank you for making time to join us this morning. I wanted you to help us appreciate, or help us with an overview generally of this particular round of the Afrobarometer report, which involves some 39 countries.
There's a bit of an echo at the back. I don't know if you can hear me properly.
No, I can hear you very well, so you may just proceed.
But
yes.
there's a lot of noise from your side.
Okay, so my technical people will work on that, and then we will. Okay, so I hear it's been fixed. So if you can hear them well now, I want a general overview of this particular report around, and what you sought to do, and where Ghana places in the 39 countries you looked at.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Yes.
Yeah, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, well, I'm saying I wanted a general overview of this particular round of the Afrobarometer report. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, there should be. Let me make some corrections. So this is not a new round of the Afrobarometer. That is yet to come. We just the round 9 survey, which was done in 2022, was the last Afrobarometer survey done in Ghana. The round 10 is underway, and we'll get some results in the coming months. But what this was Afrobarometer produced a publication looking at trends in sort of attitudes to democracy, society, economy issues, and so on and so forth, between 2011 and 2023. So let's say the last 10 years or 11 years, sort of looking at some key issues around support for democracy, rejection of military rule, and just some broad attitudes to democracy. And giving some of the debates that are ongoing between democracy and development, people's softening stance on development. And I think for those of us in Ghana, there are some data points that are quite interesting when you begin to look at those analyses. So for instance, you will see that our satisfaction levels with the supply of democracy has dropped quite a bit over the years, almost by, I think, 23%. If you look at the rejection of military rule, there's a softening of that rejection, by almost negative 16% points. So it's people's affirmation that they don't want military rule. It's softened over the years. While things like one-man rule, one-party rule, are still very high, but military rule, there's a softening. If you also look at things like the drivers of these attitudes, particularly for dissatisfaction, economy, the performance of the economy is one thing. How government manages the economy, how government manages corruption, political factors like the quality of elections are all huge drivers of dissatisfaction with democracy. So I think it's really food for thought. Ghana is always seen as the model, but when you begin to see some of these trends, then people need to wake up to their responsibilities. If we want a democratic state that is inclusive, that delivers for the people, then leadership have to work much, much harder to continue to, persuade, particularly the youth, who, in all the analysis, when you do the breakdown in terms of the cohorts, the youth tend to be, in these statistics, either a lot more satisfied, a lot more in support, or fewer rejecting military rule. So it's not a good sign, and I think it's a wake-up call. I don't know what even at the round 10 will show, but round 10 might even show a worse, position. So I think it's really a wake-up call, and I don't think this should be a surprise to the political class or to government or to anybody. You can look around the sub-region, you can look at what is going on in the continent and understand that you cannot, even when you have a vibrant electoral democracy like ours, where there's a change of power, every 2 elections, and you still don't deliver on quality goods and services, on development and the improvement of people's lives. At some point, people will begin to question the political arrangement that they are engaged in. There's clear support for democracy because everybody understands that is one of the best ways to fulfill people's lives, and so that they can be vibrant members of society. But if it fails to deliver development, then questions will continue to be asked.
I see. That's interesting. So satisfaction with democracy dropped. Stance on rejection of military rule softened. And these are quite scary. And a lot of these, I'm sure, will be traced to the performance of the ruling class over a period of time. Is it that Ghanaians have become more alive to the to democracy and to their rights and things they can get or expect to get from the politicians or from the ruling class, or the ruling class is just not delivering? That is why people are beginning to act this way? Is it an increased awareness, or is it a failure of the ruling class to deliver on what the people need?
Well, certainly, I mean, if you look at the rounds over the years, it's very clear that dissatisfaction is, people measure what their expectations are of democracy. Whether, they expect the president, to respect the rule of law, whether they think that there's equality. I mean, one of the things that, like a driver of less support for democracy or changes in support is the equality before the law. So people feel that, certain people in society, because of their status, are not treated the same way like ordinary people, that they get preferential treatment. So that inequality, that sense that there are other people that, they are given a different treatment because they are in power or they have access to power, also makes people don't believe in the system. So when we look at access to justice and things like that, and, even like high-profile cases where it looks like, everybody can see that for this particular issue, this person, should be properly prosecuted. And yet, that doesn't even happen. And yet, at the same time, somebody who has embezzled some small money or has stolen something, quickly prosecuted. So people see these things and they say, no, this is not a just and fair system, and therefore, why should I support it? And then start thinking about alternatives. So I think, for me, it's both sides, that people expresses that expectation because they see that, no, if they can have those rights, if they can exercise those rights, they can improve themselves. But they are not getting it from the leaders who have been entrusted with these resources to do that. And it's not over time. Maybe you might look at it and say, maybe we'll change the next time. So if you look at the Afrobarometer over the years, for example, anytime you have a change of government after 2 terms, you see a tick up in terms of high hopes for democracy, for attitudes in terms of the management of government and all of that. And then you see that after the first term, you begin to see already a dip because the change in government gives them a lift. So one big example, you look at Afrobarometer around in 2014, when we were, I think under the Bahama time, when we were very much, in real economic crisis, we eventually went to the IMF after that program. And that had also come at the back of an electoral petition, right, where people felt that, the election was not transparent enough and all of that. So when you get that combination of factors, you see very bad, ratings of government and so on. Then you come 2017, you see an uptick in support for a democracy, support, believe that, government will do all of these things. As soon as you do another one in 2019, you begin to see a dip because government they are not able to fulfill that expectation that citizens have. So when you do that over a period of time, at some point, these attitudes begin to harden and people are less trustful of the state, they are less trustful of political leaders, they are less trustful of the system.
I see.
And you can see, if you look at all the countries and all the countries that have struggled on satisfaction issues, on support for democracy, most of them now, some of them, particularly in the Sahel, have all become, military, which is the coup d'etats there. And even countries like South Africa, which was also showing this high level of satisfaction. You saw what happened at the last election. You know, people felt that in spite of the history of apartheid, you know, having a black majority party that was not delivering, they would rather not continue down that path. They want to try something else. And now you have a coalition government there. So I think for me, I think it's a lesson for citizens ourselves, but also for the political class, the leadership, that, you know, we cannot continue with business as usual. You know, all the things that we are not doing well, whether it's transparency, accountability, anti-corruption, you know, if we don't clear those things, then people's attitudes will harden around whether or not democracy is efficacious.
Very well. Very well. So before you go, so when are we expecting the round 10? Is it coming before elections? And what will be the focus of?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm sure by October or so we should, that results will be out.
What will be the focus?
No, I mean, Afrobarometer has over 100 questions. So it covers, you know, because they track the questions over time, a lot of it will cover the same kinds of questions, but more in the present, looking more at the present scenario, yeah.
Very well. Thank you so much, Dr. Kojo Asante, for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
He is the Director of Policy Engagement and Programs at the CDD, who together with their partners work on the Afrobarometer report. Thanks so much, Doc, for speaking to us this morning. Doc, let me come to you, Dr. Kisi. So interesting things that the Afrobarometer pulls together. So for example, you have people softening their stance on their rejection of military rule. You know, people now getting slightly dissatisfied, or satisfaction in democracy dropping, you know, corruption on the high, etc. As a member of the ruling team or the governing side, when you look at these indicators, what does it tell you? Does it tell you that the government or the ruling class has failed the people, or like I asked him, or is it that the people have become more awakened and so now know their rights and so can place demands on persons they've elected to go deliver the goods for them?
Well, I'm happy about some of the feedback from the general population, and I must say that I'm very touched by the fact that Ghanaians have come to that realization that military rule is a donor.
But that stance is softening.
And that's what I'm saying, that even with it softening, I think at the heart of all of us, based on the ravages of the past and what we've seen or been through, and the fact that there are people with testimonies of that experience. I mean, I won't go far outside the likes of Kobna Ejipong of our party. The fact that he celebrated his father recently. So it's not far from us. We're not far removed from the experience, and I think that the beauty of the Ghanaian voter is the fact that they believe that this election they'll make their statement at the ballot, and I think that we all have to also support the Electoral Commission in making sure that the integrity and the perception of the public should be that they can make a determination about the future of this country on their own, based on their votes. And I think that, honestly speaking, there's more that remains to be done on both sides. And I have argued that in the last 2 weeks, with what happened in Kenya and other places, people in the political domain or sphere need to be very careful in terms of our discourse, in terms of our posture in dealing with the average citizen. And Ghanaian voters are now very sophisticated. And I must add that we need to be mindful of that. That you know, gone are the days when we didn't have access to things on our phones, to the extent that now we are even wary of the fact that tomorrow somebody might use AI to misquote Dr. Asante, you know, and that can even blow, you know, us all off. That, hey, CDD, Dr. Asante has said this, when invariably, or in fact, that is not the case. So we're at a point where all of us, and this goes to all the parties, need to be very careful of what audio recordings can do. And you know, as this ambulance case drags on, as the IGP's case about audio recordings drag on, I'm tempted to even think that the media houses need to help us really train and make sure that our listeners are careful in what they hear and what they think to be true, and how that can impact our election. Not far from Africans' history, Tutsis and Hutsis was really just about a media discussion, and one thing flared up, and that was you know, chaos. So one, Afrobarometer has done well, you know, in many regards, in terms of really checking the sentiments of the people.
And includes the fact that 9 out of 10 people think the country is headed the wrong direction.
Well, listen, if those are the sentiments, it triggers introspection within government, and I think that it will not be taken for granted. As the manifesto rolls out in a few weeks, I know that Osei Mensabosu is cognizant of this, and many of us who are in the domain of engaging with the ordinary people in Ghana, we share the sentiments. We feel their pain, and no other person than the president has even admitted that the economy has been troubling. And I've always said that one thing I like about Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's cabinet is the fact that I must not say that they are in touch with reality at the moment, and that is very important. When you have a cabinet that can listen and pay heed to striking people, unlike some time past, and you must come to terms with the fact that one of the woes of the NDC was the fact that President Mahama, even when they were striking doctors, you know, could care less.
Is the cabinet aware that telesale is not working?
Oh, this is
Let him
this was the experience.
let him land. Let him land and we see what he's
I wanted
doing.
to know whether the cabinet is aware of telesale not
Talking
working.
about a Saudi cabinet that
This was the
No, wait,
experience.
just go ahead.
It's my experience.
don't get me started.
And you can share your experience.
Yes. So
No, but if you go the wrong tangent, I'll bring you back.
The Ojuanfu syndrome.
What is Ojaifu
Which-
syndrome? You are coining this, right?
No. Ojuanfu is now almost dictionary.
Which means what?
Which means what?
Because we had a
dead
dead
sheep.
goat syndrome in this country, and that one it is tragic, but it is real and as real as it
cannot
gets.
be Charlie on strike action.
But let him
buttress
that goes
how
syndrome. Haven't you
Mahama-
taken it out of context?
Yeah, no, not even that. Salom,
he
let
was
him
talking
buttress
about
how
about
the doctor's
strike.
issue and how Mahama did not handle
Let's
it.
listen to the host.
I mean, he was talking about strike actions, etc., and how, you know, he was focused on moving the country, and then there will be strike and all of that. But he had assumed the posture of a dead goat. He was focused on it. He was not going to be moved or perturbed by the strikes and all of that. He was focused on moving the country.
He was not ready to.
But he was looking
address
at the bigger picture.
sentiments of the
He was
people.
looking at the
People
bigger
were striking
picture.
can't see the bigger picture.
You understand what
They
I'm
can
saying?
only see a tiny picture.
So
But that's for him to
this
answer.
was one of the rules of the NDC, and
but
for me,
Salam, he hasn't
I
buttressed
took
how
it.
President
No, but I said
just-
it was his personal view.
I'm entitled to.
It's his
We're
personal
speaking
view.
to the whole nation.
No, he said it's his personal view.
I'm
that
entitled.
he cared less.
I'm a
Well,
voter.
that he cared less
Yes.
about
But Muhammad
certain
did say he
problems.
was
And he
a
said
dead
it.
goat.
But
Admit that.
the Ghana
Admit
Medical
it.
Association is listening. They know the difference between the two governments,
Very
and they
well.
can attest
So,
to
so
that.
Khalid,
Including
what-
the dead good government and the
But
digitalization,
you guys had the
collapsed
trade
economic
ministry you
governance.
couldn't do anything with, and you're still on the French talking.
But can I land?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry that even as of today, the pronouncement of a dead goat triggers this
It hasn't triggered anything.
issue amongst the likes of
These people
you.
booted him out of
So-
his constituency.
Oh, that one there, that's
Go ahead.
politics.
Go ahead.
you joined, Afrofront.
No, I haven't. In concluding, I think that the sovereign state is in the people's hands, and Ghana, at all points in time, whether you're ruling or not, you have to come to terms with the fact that it is the voters that determine where we go. And I also have to admit, we are a reflection of the people. Those governing are largely a reflection of the people. And that is why I'm arguing that in the future, voters have to be firm in their mind and make a case to whoever is coming that this is what we want, and this is where you should be directing your policy. And I think that we haven't done that enough in this country, where, for instance, healthcare becomes the number one thing that anybody campaigning on will be campaigning on. Or even now, as we speak, in as much as the economy and jobs are the main thing, we are not making a strong case for the political parties who are, including even government, to be very, very super clear in terms of how we're going to deal with jobs, in terms of how we're going to deal with transforming this economy. And that is the onus. The onus is on us.
Yes.
You
So
know,
let's see what the manifestos have to
CSOs
say.
and all that.
So let's see what the manifestos will say. People like the movement for change, they have been quite clear about
they've
how,
made
how
an attempt.
Yes,
And I must admit,
So yes, so they've outdoored their GTP, which is quite simple.
is an attempt.
And we'll see all of that. Let's see what
But
the
it
MPP.
needs more meat.
No problem. And he's listening to you with his cap. Let's see what the NDC and the MPP will have in terms of how to deal with those problems in their manifesto.
So just before he comes on board, one thing is that the ruling party will not take for granted the Afrobarometer results.
Good.
We will pay attention.
Work with it.
We will work with it. We'll see how best we can, address some of the pressing issues. By economy and jobs, certainly is addressed by even digitalization, which I've explained here today, that the likes of Zoom are trillion-dollar economies. So that's one key thing.
I mean, you have played in the civil society space and all of that. Afrobarometer has been at it for a while. Not like the Kojo Asante said, this is not a new round per se, but it just draws from other things they've done and put that together. Are you surprised by some of the things that they've come up with? Country in the wrong direction, 9 out of 10 people. Corruption on the rise, a softening stance on rejection of military rule, satisfaction in democracy dropping, and quite a number of things. These clearly are not positive for a country like Ghana, whose democracy we appear to be proud of.
The themes haven't changed, but collectively it's about leadership. Hello. The Afrobarometer over the 25 years has been looking for a single bullet that will transform Africa. It's about the quality of leadership. After all, what's governance about? Who gets what, when, how, why?
And where?
The old last well. All of us are aware of that last well. That's what we are all looking for. Whether it's a military government, whether it's a civilian government, whether it's multi-party, whether it's a dictatorship, whether an independent is going to lead us, people are looking for, first of all, vision. Where are you taking us? Where we sit. Integrity. How are you going to generate and share the opportunities that come from what you've been given? Responsibility. How are you going to prioritize and implement once we've given it to you and our resources are in your hands? Accountability. Are you prepared
to come back before us and tell us what you've done with what we've given you. These are the deficits that we are facing. And because of these deficits, we have poor public sector infrastructure, we have poor social services, our educational systems, our health systems, everything is haphazard, and we are unable to create clear opportunities for expansion for our youth who we train. It means we have narrow economies, the economies are not expanding, and then it means we have pressure on our currencies. Because the economies are not expanding, we are not transforming the economies, we are not changing the structure of the economies. These are all leadership issues. But if you have vision, you can transform the economy. You understand? And because we have a deficit in leadership vision, because we have a deficit in integrity, even the little that we have, we are not taking care of it well. We are sharing it in a manner that goes to a few and excludes the many. Then responsibility. We don't care. We don't believe we need to take care of what belongs to all of us. If Ghanaians want to take Ghana back, they must look at these issues in that light. Corruption, the deficit in services. Because Ghana is not being held by those in the majority who deserve it. So to take Ghana back, you must have quality leadership. And this is a very dangerous situation because it's an opportunity and a threat. If by 2030, we're going to have 60% of the population of this continent under 35, and they don't have jobs, reliable jobs, if amongst that, only 20% will be gainfully employed, then what does it tell you about access?
What will the rest be doing?
What will they be doing in order to grow themselves? What will they be doing? Can they get married? Can they eat regularly? Can they sleep? Can they transport themselves back and forth? These are all basic needs. So if you don't have a leadership that continuously provides those needs based on opportunities that are created inclusively, then you have a problem managing. By 2030, we are being told that 51% of this population I'm talking about will be living in cities. Already, the cities are choked, overcrowded, gutters are full, it rains for 5 minutes, and people are flooded and swept away. Poor urban planning, land grabbing, all manner of things that simply are not accountable to the people who vote. So when the people then vote and they are not getting the benefit of the votes, they begin to question why they are voting. Because they are voting for leadership. They are voting for direction. They are voting for somebody who will open spaces up for them.
And in your view, that hasn't been delivered.
It's not being delivered, and it is creating a blowback. Unfortunately, that blowback to military adventurism doesn't work either. There is no statistics to show that military rule makes a difference. And we have it now. Look at how ECOWAS is being dismembered by this situation of creeping military rule. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and they are digging down. And foreign interests are coming in to shore it up. So we are on the verge of another Cold War, partially hot this time, in West Africa, where the proxy situation is moving away from Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, to West Africa. You understand? But what are we getting out of it? So if the youth feel that it is the military who can do this, they also become captive to the international forces. They come in there. Yes, they have the discipline of their training, but they simply don't have the discipline of governance, political governance. They don't. So they come in and they don't do anything different. So what you need to do as a population, what you need to do as youth, is to sit back and look carefully at what is on offer. And I like what you said about manifestos. It's not just manifestos. It's the individuals who are going to be driving those manifestos. Now, the times are such that we need to move beyond amorphous organizations. Organizations that are catchphrasy. Organizations that are slogan-based. Parties, MPP, NDC, the CPP, PNC, Movement for Change. We are all organizations, political entities. But what do these organizations throw up? Individuals who offer leadership. So those individuals must be tested in their own right. It is time the youth who vote look at who they are conferring their rights on, who they are giving their wealth to manage, who they are giving their future to. That's why they must always look at those individuals coming in across the 4 indices I have mentioned. Their vision for the country, their integrity, their responsibility, their ability to implement, and their accountability.
Very well.
Yes, so I'm saying that Afrobarometer, excellent. It's just another version of Fitch and otherwise, but this has been running for 25, and it's looking at the thematics that go to the heart of the African problem. How do you select a leadership based on a system that gives you the best chance of somebody who will drive you in a positive direction? And they are struggling with democracy because our current democratic process is fixated with the amorphous institutions, political parties. And the political parties are not giving us choices of leadership that will drive us forward. So when you use the Ghanaian example, the NDC says John Mahama, who's been rejected before, and now comes in for an amorphous 24-hour policy. The MPP is stuck in a rut. They don't know where to move next. Who is the alternative? Transformation. So you must be prepared to deal with Alan, who says, I will transform you. Look at what Alan is offering. A great transformational plan. Policies that are actual prescriptions for transformative change. And compare them to whatever MPP and DC will bring. And then look at Alan's track record. His performance outside politics, his performance in politics, and his vision. Because if you're going to look at the individual, you cannot walk away from the fact that the individual must be a person of prior performance before politics. Alan has a record in creating jobs and opportunities.
Cash
and
for
it is
the
that
people.
which we need now.
Cash for the people.
It is
cash in
that
their
which
pockets.
we need now.
Very
How
well.
to create inclusive economies. That's why he's talking about an enterprise economy with the private sector in the forefront.
Very well.
Local capital accumulation, using the energy of the youth in order to transform what we have.
But is it connecting with the youth? Because I see the youth. I mean, is it connecting with the
You
youth?
will be amazed. You will be amazed. They understand what he's about.
I see.
He can do even more. If we are able to do more than we are doing presently, he will win the election on the first ballot. If we continue the way we are, it will go to a second round, and he will win on the second round.
That's interesting. I'm not sure Dr. Khalid will agree with you.
Well, I mean,
obviously, he's a competitor in the election.
I'm going to start from that premise.
So, I mean,
actually,
the Afrobarometer is throwing up a number of things. Very ominous, not very good. I mean, corruption on the rise, dissatisfaction with democracy growing, people beginning to rethink the military rule. They are beginning to soften their stance on that and all of that. It doesn't look good for our country. He thinks that leadership is what is lacking. And John Mahama has been there before. I'm not sure if he provided that kind of leadership. But what is the promise to solve these problems or to
He
deal
did,
with these
actually.
problems?
John Mahama did, which is why the good people of Ghana, come December 7, will give him the second mandate to complete all of what he's done. We have the tangibles. In the airport, that's repaying itself. We have the circle interchange, among other things, that he's done in terms of policy formulation, among other things. So if we are talking about, or we want to juxtapose track records, we'll do that till the cows come home as far as President Mahama is concerned. But then again, he makes I think, well, no, I'm trying not to say he's a comrade, so that's why I'm trying to be careful here. Or if you want to join the fray of the NDC,
everybody.
if he wants to join the fray of the NDC, then I would give him the comrade tag.
I'm center of center.
You see, you guys have been given a free reign at the Trade Ministry, and that was your litmus test to prove how efficacious the Honorable Alan Chiramanten is. And if we are talking about anyone being the father of sloganeering, it's in the DNA of Alan, which started with Alan Cash. That's how we all knew him. And that is sloganeering. And where did it take us to? Nowhere. And you're here talking about transformation, right?
But to be fair, Alan at the Trade Ministry did quite a number of things.
Which are what?
The automobile industry that we are seeing.
No, come on, you see, don't go there. No.
He was tasked to do a number of things.
Don't go there.
He was tasked to do a number of things. The 1D1F.
No.
It may not be very successful.
If we're talking about automobile, we can contact the PR division of VW. Right, they are doing their own initiative who coincides with the government initiative, and they want to.
But we needed somebody to.
So you can't discount it.
No.
Somebody has to put down a policy.
Right? So now, let me not waste time on this, and let's talk to the tangibles.
Very good.
I think Afrobarometer very well respected as a researcher. Anytime I want to look at Africa in terms of surveys and what have you, Afrobarometer, that's the go-to place, and they've earned their place and credibility, actually, if you ask me. So when it comes to polling and some research activities or surveys, that's a household name. And I must give it to them. And Professor Jimabodi, who has been doing very well at the CDD. I know that they are separate entities now, but we tend to always see that they are trying to, but that brand actually is holding them together, and they've been doing a fantastic job. They should keep it up. I think they throw out a lot of sentiments, right, which reflects the pulse of the nation, right? And I'm going to do this quite different to what everyone else has done on this table. Why am I going to say this? When we talk about the presence of the military and coup d'etats, let's trace back to those who lived or probably read about the Bouzia regime and what have you. When intelligence was picked up that there was going to be a coup d'etat, and President Bouzia at the time was informed that there was going to be a coup d'etat, his defense minister then told him that, they shouldn't mind those barracks boys. They wanted promotions. And went on a rally and dangled the keys of the arsenal to the military of our dear nation and said that these are the arsenals, these are the keys to the arsenal, and no one can have a coup d'etat. The coup came earlier than expected. So it tells you intelligence play a key role and just not. But why am I going back to this harrowing history? Let's look at our intelligence setup today as a nation. Before that, or even during the transitional period of this government, in their first administration, they brought the military out of the barracks. And some military were playing escorts and ADCs to ministers and state CEOs. That's how indisciplined this government was when they started. It had to take some noise for them to let that go off. Who does that? So that was where the clear indiscipline started. Now, see its culmination. It culminated in a Dankwa Institute capture of our state intelligence setup, which we have today. Why do I say this? Which is what? The current national security boss, when he was brought in, was head of the Dankwa Institute for a couple of months and then transitioned to become Deputy National Security, now National Security Boss. The current BNI, now NIB, boss, transitioned at the Dankwa Institute a few months, so it became an ideological grounds for preparing people for national security roles of the country. So as we said now, we have a Dankwa Institute capture of our intelligence and national security setup.
But the point is,
I'm not saying, let me land, Salon.
No, but I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything.
So let me interject. When I'm flowing, let me go.
Go.
Right? So, and a colonel, right, a top military brass who was then national security boss, was sent to an Accra initiative, a project design, to whatever it means, we don't know. What we used to call the research unit of, which is like foreign intelligence of the foreign ministry. You should go and see how it's handled now, whether it's what it used to be.
How is it being handled now?
Well, people who know.
But we want to know too, because you're saying that.
And all of this.
How differently is it being run?
Well, is it what it used to be? Go to our embassies and see how we are represented as far as the intelligence or research unit. Because it used to be one of the most elite units. But today, who runs it? How is the recruitment done?
Okay, great. So
these are the fundamentals. I'm making the build up to what is informing the pulse of the people as far as the military issues are concerned, or where our national security actually lies. Because what we are discussing is national security concern. Right? Again, there's the evidence of, the interference of this and not so posing a very effective national security infrastructure. Mind you, when it comes to national security and intelligence, it's a competition. The Mossad is competing with us. The CIA is competing with us. The SARS of South Africa
but I think what the report is saying.
So I'm still coming. I'm building a premise.
Yeah,
but I'm informing you of what is giving this perception that is reflected in Afrobarometer.
People are beginning to soften their stance, which means more people are beginning to want military intervention. That's what it's saying.
And I'm coming to why we are having all of this and whether that is opening a danger to us. Right? So what has happened in all of this? So you see this competition happening. Just a few months ago, the Daily Graphic was used as a propaganda source to join a string of other tabloid press to publish a BNI report saying that a survey of this, which was very laughable, it has nothing intelligence about it, because if you looked at it, any of our competitors would have a good laugh in seeing that report. So these are the fundamental issues we are setting ourselves up that is informing the perception of people to say, but if you are doing this, where you have this, why don't we have this intervention? That is where all of this is coming from.
It is not flowing from dissatisfaction with the ruling class.
But that is what I have.
Economic issues.
No, it's just not hardcore economic issues. Leadership. plays an integral role. And by extension, hardcore economic issues dovetails to leadership. And that's why I've given you a classic example of what nonsense we've made of our national security and infrastructure setup, which is reflective. We've got national security is economic issues. How will you advise if you have a crony there? And when you do this, mind you, there are senior intelligence officers climbing up the ladder. And they'll feel disaffectioned and demotivated. And when that happens, what are we creating for ourselves as a country? We become very vulnerable.
I see. So what's the solution John Mahama is proposing? I mean, we've seen what Afrobarometer has said.
It's not just John Mahama. John Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Akufo-Addo.
No, but
so
the one leads the party.
Right? Yes. But what we're saying is that we're going to give you the government the people of Ghana deserve. Right? Zero corruption. We're going to put
zero corruption.
Zero. That's the effort.
Corruption is on the rise.
Yes, but we have to put. This is our target. Right.
And mind you, John Mahama was booted out because, amongst other things, the record on corruption was poor.
Oh, you want us to go to a record of corruption?
No, I mean,
a sitting minister of President John Mahama dreamt of having 1 million cedis and was booted out. Abuga Pele, President Mahama commissioned the report as president for him to be investigated. He went to jail. It took this government to give him a package.
So the point is
if we're talking about corruption, when you do this, Salom, it doesn't help the discourse because you are comparing, John Mahama is miles up. How do you make this comparison? Look at the procurement economy they've created.
You are claiming zero corruption.
That is our target. I said we are target. I didn't claim.
That's why.
I didn't claim. I said that is our target.
I need to bring your mind back to what the past was.
No, I said that is our target when we come in. But if we hit her, the sky is our limit.
Zero is impossible. You are the statistician.
No, but I'm not saying that's not impossible. But that's our target.
Zero is impossible.
We want to have, and that will keep us on our toes.
Especially with the NDC.
Right? We're talking about a functional 24-hour economy, which people are refusing to appreciate on this table.
But what has
I can't appreciate it.
It's all over the country. Nobody understands it.
What do you mean by nobody?
You understand it yourself.
Do you want me to explain to you?
No, that's not why we're here today.
Yeah, if he wants, I can give him a clear rendition of it. We can have a whole time to that effect.
We'll deal with that later. So the point is
the point is, Afrobarometer survey reflects the direct pulse of the people. And never in the history of this country. I mean, just look at the voter cohort. Many of the people, and look at what they've presented, right, may not have even seen coup d'etats or may not have experienced military regimes, but they tend to have an appetite for it. It tells you how dissatisfied this government is. That is the evidence of it.
Very well. Great.
One key thing.
Let me run. Franklin, you're in the civil society space. I know this will come to you as no surprise, really. But how do we reset the country? Not very good things that the Afrobarometer is thrown at us. How do you reset it? I know you want to take a few seconds to respond to Dr. Khalid, but you may spare us that. I mean, I think I did a good job for you. Just go ahead.
Actually, did not hear much of what he said because I'm sorry. But, whatever it was, I mean, it's a debate. I'm sure he probably meant well. Well, first of all, I think no surprises here at all. And I think we should be interested more in moving forward. As Kojo himself suggested, it looks as if the round 10 may even be worse. I'm not entirely surprised. I think 2015 thereabout, the Africa Report actually published also a poll across the continent, and it said almost 75% at the time of Africans preferred development to democracy. So it was interesting. So they didn't care what constitutional strictures were at hand. They were just interested in development. And what did they want? They want good drinking water, good schools, good health care. These are the basics that people require. I mean, so all these big things that we keep looking out for, people just want to have a modicum of livelihood that is modest, that is constant, that is reliable, and that is all they need. And I suspect that once we're able to get into, public resources are directed at just providing these basics of life. Nobody really will care who is sitting at the Jubilee House anyway. I mean, if people get the sense that they could get good health care, good drinking water, good roads, good, generally an environment that is not smelly, like a clean city, people don't really care, So let's reduce all of this to just the basis of life. That's why in some countries when they say, I mean, some of the happiest countries, it's not really so much about the wealth of the people. Of course, the productivity of the people also counts, but at the end of the day, people are living lives that are worthy with their own standards. And I think that's what we require. So for me, the lives of the Afrobarometers basically are pointing to our failings, basic failings of how not to organize a state.
Very
And
well.
I'm surprised at the end of the day we still yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Very well. So that's Franklin Kujo dealing with the Afrobarometer report as well. We will take a short break, return and deal with the issue of citizen power, people's power, the LI, which was quickly withdrawn. And of course, you can stretch that to include the SNIT hotels and all of that we saw earlier in the week. But in the meantime, we want to say a happy birthday to Carlos Ahinkra.
Yes. I cannot be here and not say a big happy birthday to a senior colleague. And I say that because he's been there for 2 terms and a very wonderful father figure for many politicians. And that's Tema West's MP, Carlos Ahinkra.
Great. So we wish you the very best, Carlos. We'll take a short break. We'll return and deal with the other matters. Don't go away.
Be friends.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
even before we both entered Parliament.
Oh, I see.
So Carlos
I
is
see.
a great guy.
Okay, great
Happy
one.
birthday.
Okay,
Tell
great.
him not to over-celebrate.
You see, I've been a very good mediator. I'm bringing friends together.
And you shouldn't
This is
be
why you
chewing
should
ballot
join us.
papers. You shouldn't be chewing ballot papers. We'll return with more. Don't go away. All right, you are welcome back. This is the big issue, the final lap of the program. So this is the segment the issue for this segment really has to do with the matter of the withdrawal of the road traffic amendment regulations, where Parliament, the Minister for Local Government quickly withdrew that and said that they had to do some more engagement, etc. on it. What did the road traffic amendment regulation 2024 seek to do? We understand it had a number of other amendments, quite a number of amendments I can see before me. But the part that angered the people really was on Regulation 74, where they said that despite Sub-Regulation 1, a siren or bell may be fitted as a warning appliance and used on the following classes of motor vehicles. A motor vehicle used for official purposes by the head of state, the vice president, the speaker of parliament, the chief justice, ministers of states, justices of the Supreme Court, and members of parliament, so the police service, all of those security people there. So the thinking was that the politicians were now detached from the people to the extent that now they did not want to stay in traffic. They wanted to use sirens to avoid traffic, etc. People also thought that they voted people into power to solve problems. So if you are in traffic, that clearly is a problem that you are called upon to solve. You don't find a convenient way of getting out of that problem when the people you have been called to serve continue to struggle in that problem every now and then or daily. So, that was it. And that they will also be exempted from speed limits, exempted from speed limits. And that was also a part that Ghanaians did not agree with. And coming on the back of the sale or the proposed sale of the SNIT hotels and all of that, and what organized labor did, people thought that the politicians or the ruling class wasn't listening to them enough. So the background really is that the transport minister sent to Parliament the particular amendment, and so as Parliament does, took it to the subsidiary legislating committee, and that was where these discussions about adding MPs to it, because the argument was that if ministers were included and justices of the Supreme Court were there, forming 2 arms of government, what stopped the legislature from also benefiting from this, since they were all in the business of pushing the state agenda or the national agenda? The people of Ghana didn't really take kindly to it. You are in Parliament. You don't want to stay in traffic, or the proposal is that you don't have to stay in traffic with us. We are not happy with that.
Yeah.
It's been withdrawn now. How do you feel as a member of Parliament, given that a privilege you wanted is being disapproved by the people of Ghana?
Okay. So I think that, let me be a bit of a devil's advocate here. The sentiments expressed by the ordinary Ghanaian is not necessarily just about this traffic issue. And I think that we need to look at the bigger and broader picture that people are not necessarily happy with people in government or people in politics. And I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to, one, disabuse people's minds about some of the quote-unquote largesse that people might think that we are, enjoying. One thing I need to say on record here, I do not buy fuel with any coupons. I actually pay with cash for my fuel. Others in government may be getting coupons, but not members of parliament. Now, if I try to defend parliament today on this show, the repercussions I'll be getting after will be huge. So I'm by no way today going to necessarily defend parliamentarians on this show because of the current, uproar in our society. But I'll only plead with people that, listen, I'm always of the opinion that when you work hard and you're in certain positions, even in private enterprise, where some CEOs in private enterprise are enjoying heavily, I believe that whether in government or in private enterprise, people ought to be paid for, one, their meritly acquired, level in society. And what I mean by that is that, listen, a district assembly executive is a huge role in government in terms of local governance. And we need to give that office the befitting things that office requires. The same with, shall I even say, ordinary assemblymen. I mean, if we're moving towards good governance, I would expect that from grassroots, every person per their role should be, given the appropriate benefits of the job and the position and the work they do. Let me cite, for instance, many people who are leading government now, and I won't mince my words. I believe that people ought to be paid for performance. That is very important. And then people, by virtue of the office they occupy, need to be given the requisite
the tools they need to do their work.
To do their work. If you deprive a member of parliament of a computer and later on make demands on him for efficiency, then I would ask myself, where are we going? And I think that sometimes that thin line between what goes with the position and what we think is luxurious is a huge problem. And we all have a lot of work to do. Listen.
So the point you're making is that you don't find the fixing of sirens on cars of members of parliament as luxury?
No, I'm saying that I want to go beyond just this issue and look at the bigger thing. Where, for instance, in my previous work, if the company was sending you by flight and it's more than 6 hours, they'll put you in first class. That was my experience in my former work with Tyco Healthcare. Now, if you're in government and you are given, and this you can check. I mean, these are policies that, yes.
I mean, my workplace, we're going above 6 hours. You're entitled to a business class.
So if this is extended to a government official, shall we be in a fist fight for that? I mean, this is the key question I'm putting out there. That, listen, we need to be a bit realistic. I mean, I don't expect my president in this country to go on an economy ticket. I mean, this is the
but
point.
You can go on a chartered flight, top of the range.
No. Listen, I'm trying to be as very
and take a shower.
That is below the belt.
and I think that I'm only pleading with Ghanaians that, in as much as we do these things, it is important that we are cognizant of the fact that these are positions, and I'm not talking just for parliamentarians. These are positions,
But look, I see how you're struggling. I see how you're trying to put the issues out. Very important, but also mindful of the sentiments out there.
I mean, that's why I'm
but as a beneficiary of the system, more or less, quote unquote, what do you feel? Do you think that people behave so because they are disappointed? They feel they are not getting what they want to get from their people, so they take care of you, they pay your bills. They do what they have to do for you. It may not be excellent, but they feel that you are underperforming. A lot of people have said that if they were doing what they ought to do,
the irony of all of this, and people misquoted me. Dr. Koboy, my biggest fan, was let go because of non-attendance to social engagements in his constituency. I mean, that was the raging matter, that he's not doing social engagements enough. And these same people who would bring you the invitations for 5 programs in a day are saying that, quote unquote, if I'm moving from Kaswa to my constituency today, you can imagine the traffic. How do I do it? How do I get to those engagements that are, unfortunately, in our country, becoming more important than the real work of legislation? And listen, it is our reality. It is not something that I have preferred. It's not something that I have asked for. But, I am literally out of my next tenure because of things like that. You understand? And it's not about my competence, my inability to function appropriately in Parliament and make a case for government or against government, or make a case for a policy, or policies that impact the average trader. The question is, was he at my wedding? Was he at my funeral? And unfortunately, we are not paying attention to that. And I think that, I said somewhere that when the kukru jai, the demands we're making on the politicians on a weekend like today, those who are running, you can call them and appreciate what they have to do today. And that is, it cuts across all the political spectrums. So one, I don't use a siren now, and I'm mindful. People will say that, do one engagement, but listen, sometimes, even based on some of the statutory requirements, let me cite, for instance, Afenyo Markins today. By virtue of some meetings he has to be in, it is probably a requirement that the quorum in that meeting, he has to show up. And there might be about 3 meetings like that in a day. And that can happen on an average day for a minister.
You are still overburdening him and giving him ECG to run.
I'm making a case here that for, or let me cite a minister of energy.
Yes, a minister.
Okay?
A minister.
He might, by virtue of the position he holds, have to be seated in 3 or 4 meetings that require that his presence, if not for the entire meeting, be there and recorded that he was there. And how do you do that? These are all very equally important things. Sometimes either in cabinet and then in another meeting. And that is our reality. It is not something we have asked for. And this thing can repeat Monday to Friday for some of these ministers. And
so
how
these little privileges will facilitate their work.
And let me say that I'm with the Ghanaian people based on how they feel. But let's be mindful of those realities. I abhor, sirens. I abhor, and listen, in the New Yorks, police have knocked down people rushing to an emergency. And those things do happen. Things happen, and sometimes you see them at the joint taking coffee, and even we are upset that they're using our tax money. Meanwhile, they're not even using our tax money. So I think that it is unfortunate where we have gotten to, but we need to.
But people must cut you some slack, more or less.
We need to manage the perceptions and the way people think about people in government to a large extent. And in concluding, let me not digress, but listen, the likes of Kennedy Ejapo, the likes of Brian Echampong, if you see them in a private jet and you might think that it is because of government. Those are some of the unfortunate mistakes that some of us make.
Don't do that. When you do this public miseducation,
no.
it tends to affect.
Can
we go to the track record of these names you are mentioning before politics?
Just
not a
make a
good
point.
example.
It
This is what annoys the public when you want to.
Just conclude. Make a point.
My point is that
you deal with it.
there are very enterprising people who have gone into politics, and sometimes we're mistaken.
What was the track record?
No, I mean maybe not this example. See, because they are politicians, maybe. But I think it's making a point.
But the point is,
it's not every time you see a politician.
We are heightening that sentiment by making such examples.
So I mean, what I understand him to be saying is that
I
it's
was
not
siding with
every
him
time
until he went that tangent and
because he mentioned names.
Interesting
so
examples.
don't worry, don't worry. Okay, so I think your point is made. Your point is largely made.
Oh,
yeah, the point is made.
Okay, I mean, I think I won't.
It's a difficult point.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
But my point has been made.
I'm eager to hear what you say because
yes,
you have been there and then you are out of it. You upon hindsight.
He knows the experience.
So, what is your thinking when you heard of this LI? Were you alarmed? Did you think it would go through? Did you think, oh, okay, now people are beginning to see the need for parliamentarians, given the things they do, to have this privilege? That before it was thrown out. What did you think, and what do you make of the whole process?
It's valuable pushback in the entire decision-making and accountability process. If people feel included, some of these things belong to the big picture. Like Doc is struggling to say, if the pie is expanding and everybody has space within it, nobody looks at what you have. They tend to take what they have and accept it and protect it. But if the pie is not growing, you keep wanting to take, people begin to think that you are taking more than you deserve. And then even when legitimately you need something, there's pushback because you are not opening up for everybody else. And that's the problem we have. Everything is shrinking. And then those in charge, those in leadership appear to be taking more and more. They may not necessarily be taking, but because the majority are frustrated, there's pushback. And that's exactly what's happening with the Kenyan situation and what has happened recently in Ghana with the snake hotels, with the Chief Justice's attempt to increase the number of justices on the court, with other incidents where the citizenry are beginning to react and say no. See, the lacuna, the big gap, is that when you stop it, what happens? Because the decision-making process is not moving that far. And then there's a tendency to move on to the next issue and leave everything else hanging. You understand? And when you leave it hanging, two things happen. Either whatever you were against continues to degenerate, because we have people using sirens in Ghana now, including private people. Yeah. Anybody who can afford a big vehicle puts a siren in there, and then when it passes, you assume it's an MP. But it may be a CEO of some business or otherwise who wants to be in a hurry to go to these multiple meetings he's talking about. But that's social growth. You understand what I'm saying? So if we will pursue this towards qualitative governance, there are things we must do. One, nobody should be shut out.
Nobody should be shut out.
Yes. And that goes to the media. The media tends to project what they believe is that which society wants to hear and listen to. But there are so many shades of opinion. There are so many things going on. There are so many things happening. So you have a duty to open your doors to as many shades of opinion as possible. I'm saying this out of experience, as I've been experienced on all sides of the aisle. I've been in civil society, I've been in the public sector, I've been in elected office, I've been in the private sector. You find it difficult when your flavor is not popular to get heard.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are even squeezed out specifically, artificially, through ways and means. And we are all guilty of it, because if you influence somebody to shut somebody out, the person you are influencing is as guilty as the one who is doing the influence. So the media must do that. And then this year, the EC, for example, the suspicions start and then everybody starts throwing mud at the EC. So the EC shouldn't shut anybody out. Their duty is to ensure that they can demonstrate clearly that they will fairly announce a result of integrity Otherwise, people will feel shut out. Then when there isn't even any basis for the suspicions, the louder the suspicions, the less credible the EC looks like. And then the result comes out, and then people who have genuinely failed can easily start screaming that we failed because the EC didn't hear us, the EC was opaque, the EC is functioning in a particular way. You can't shut people out. Civil society. The EC, I can say, is part of civil society. It's a referee because it determines who gets into the door. But the media is part of civil society. Then all those institutions, including Franklin and the political parties and political movements, we must be more critical, constructively critical of what we are offering the people. You can't just come in and throw in an airline about, you come in and trade minister throws in an airline about suspending imports or controlling prices. There isn't an engagement that goes to the critical roots of the matter. Sometimes you must do a lot of pre-engagement. You must listen before you act. You don't act and then listen. And then be forced to about 10, volte-face, and it reduces your authority because there's a perception that you're weak, there's a perception that you're not thinking things through, there's a perception that you're not leading well, there's a perception that you're not accountable, there's a perception you're not responsible, there's a perception you're not even competent. So why do governments bring this upon themselves? Simply because they are not listening. People vote for you. You must listen to them.
So it's a symptom of the fact that people think government or the ruling class is not reflecting the sentiments on the ground or what they feel.
Exactly. Let me go back to one of the laws we passed when I was in Parliament. I left earlier than Dawn.
You left and he came in.
Are you going to invite him to join us?
Why is that very...
When Afrobarometer wins, we will take the best of the... He will be there, you will be there, Selom will be there. We will take the best. But as I was saying, when I was in Parliament, we passed the luxury
Vehicle,
and we were forced to about it. You know why? Not because the tax was inappropriate, but because we didn't think through and target it well. We're in a hurry to make money, to shore up revenues because IMF was on our neck. So it came to Parliament. Parliamentarians rushed it through because we're in the majority. But the bottom line was that if you want to tax luxury, tax luxury. How did they do it? They taxed per engine capacity. So now, waste excavator vehicles above a certain were now considered as luxury vehicles and were being taxed. What sort of incompetence is that? And I was part of those who passed that law. You understand? You want to tax luxury, so perhaps you want to tax large, fat limousines. So specify this type of vehicle, that type of that. You do a little more.
It was too blanket.
It just says just one metric, engine capacity. So if you have an old Albion which is struggling to go uphill, which is more than 3.7 liters, it gets to the DVLE and they are saying it's luxury because of engine capacity. That's what the law says. We had to turn back and withdraw it. We looked stupid. We looked incompetent. And it's going back and it's coming forward. That's what I said, that this is not the first time. So for those of us in charge, we need to do a little more thorough work. Public consultation. Some of the positions we take, whether manifesto-based or under fire policy-based, we still must have a mechanism for engaging the public so that in the end, we don't have a frustrated public attacking the system. Because that's what reduces belief in the system. That's what leads to the militarism and all those things we've been talking about. Today, all we've been talking about is leadership and the rights of the people to engage that leadership and accountability of the people to the leadership as well as the leadership to the people. Our duty to forge a path that includes our dreams and that can enable us achieve those dreams in an environment of fairness, access to everybody, and in particular, accounting for the gifts God has given us. The gifts that we have of gold and diamonds, galamsey. And you go to Dubai, and the records for Ghana's exports
it's more than what we have. What we have
officially, and we are sitting there complaining about it, just complaining, because the people who have to fix it perhaps are benefiting from it. So that look of incompetence, that failure of public policy. How do we, and 2 weeks ago, Alan mentioned it, how do we clean up a banking sector and end up worse off than before with the amounts of money involved. Government policy is to clean up the financial sector. So you go ahead. First of all, the irresponsibility of bloating the financial sector by dogs people. John Mahama came to Parliament and admitted that under his watch, they had over-licensed financial houses, over 400 financial houses and banks, which were ill-performing, couldn't manage themselves. They were bad corporate governance, poor investments of public funds. They put in a rescue package, it collapsed. Now the IMF says fix it. So MPP come in and they are going to fix it. How do they fix it? With borrowing. You borrow to fix a financial problem, how are you going to pay your bills? So you end up spending over 20 billion on fixing a situation which has gone pear-shaped, and now you've tanked it, because after fixing it, you then go ahead and the new situation is that you have to take a haircut. So unprecedented, blue chip investments, pensions, these are blue chip investments, pensions, government securities, bonds, places where you are safe permanently.
Untouchable.
You now are compelled to lose. What happens? It means that next time I won't put my money there. It means that if I'm going to put my money in the house, I have to buy dollars. It means that there's pressure on the little dollar or gold bars. So there's pressure, and then you have currency instability, and then the economy, which is already distressed, goes into a tailspin. Simply
So
because the leadership are not thinking things through in a way that benefits the people. So the people will fight back.
Very well.
And that is why if you have something necessary but looks as if it's being exclusionary, like sirens, people will get up and say, hey, no. But if there are no sirens, what next? Then what next is what bothers me. That after pushing back, we are not resolving the spaces. You stop the Senate Hotel seal. What next? The Chief Justice is being stopped from proposing an additional 5 justices to 20, which I don't like at all. What next? MPs are stopped from going to multiple meetings. What next? That what next is where leadership of vision, integrity, accountability, responsibility matters.
Soon when we want to give scholarships to students, they'll say no. Or?
The NDC.
Well, I'm saying the general public. When we say,
but the scholarships are funny. The scholarships we've been giving are funny.
My point
is the point is making is that when there are benefits, they are happy.
Who have benefited from the scholarships that government has been given over the years? What is the intent? What is the purpose? Groom a Ghanaian who has capacity to transform Ghana with superior knowledge, skills transfer, technology absorption, right? So government
so that when they come back, they can be useful to the state.
Government funds people, but now government tends to fund the people who can afford it.
Well,
interesting. Yes. So
okay.
Yeah, but
the people won.
We're talking
the people
ally.
won. Yes.
We're talking ally,
so what
but you
next?
know,
let's
we
do
always
the
talk
ally.
about, I mean,
don't have time.
in terms of the economy, right? Under Mahama, there was never haircuts. Under Mahama, bank restructuring never happened. Under Mahama, the central bank never posted any losses. So the evidence is there for itself. So I don't know why
14% oil to 3.9%.
Someone would always find a way to weave in things.
Well,
You're giving a blank check at the trade ministry.
Mahama inherited an economy which was growing at 14% at its peak.
Was a one-off.
It was a one-off.
Inherited from who?
From Kufuor, it was 8%.
Mahama inherited from Kufuor.
From Mills. But it was a continuous. Mills lost it. It was a continuous barely 9 years. In 2009,
let's carry
it was
on.
an average of 8-point-something%.
Yeah, but
by 2011, it got to 14 because oil was on stream.
Yeah.
By 2016, when he was handing it over, it had dropped to 3.
With oil on stream, APEC and all of that, you still have the luxury to talk about.
No, I want us to do with the ally.
So let's deal with the ally. Okay, so
Mahama can't run this economy. So particularly in 4 years when he doesn't know what to do.
But he had 4 years and he did all of what he did.
What did he do?
The international
Ran the
report
economy down
reflects
3.9%, right?
Ran
the economy down
investment system,
3.9%. What did he do?
Healthcare.
Look, I do with the airline.
Bank of Ghana Hospital,
I went to Franklin.
3.9%.
University of Ghana Hospital,
3.9%.
where do you seek healthcare?
3.9%.
Where do you seek healthcare?
3.9%.
So deal with the ally for
All right, so I mean the ally, I always...
The people have won.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that when people are out of parliament, like as evident in the voice of Yabu Abena Samoa, they seem to have some sages that they probably never had when they were in parliament.
But hindsight is always...
It's always, that's what I'm saying. So I wish that...
And that's what's working for Mahama now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wish that if he gets a chance, I don't know. But
so that's what is working for to Mahama because now he's had time to think things over.
But I'm surprised that he's not
had
trying
time
to see.
over.
No, we're making a case for
But
you.
I'm surprised that he's not even
We are
trying
making a
to
case
go
for
back
you.
to Parliament
No,
and
no,
front talk.
No, now he's a senior strategist.
He truly
I
means
think
that.
it's about executive leadership
Right?
at this
Yeah.
time.
Okay,
Quality executive leadership, which will even change the
Charlie, you
opportunity
let
for
Babin go.
parliamentarians.
No, you are giving him the
No,
chance.
you are inviting
All
him.
right.
We're
So
saying
Ella,
the same.
let's talk Ella, right? So let's talk Ella.
Talk Ella.
That's what-
Family have the last word.
Okay, so let's talk Ella.
We need quality
I
leadership.
mean, the point is, when you're trying to legislate, right, in a democracy, for that matter, with involvement of parliament, fundamentally, the temperature of the country is important. Stakeholder engagement is important, right? And the atmosphere and climate within which we find ourselves in. Under this current political climate, things are not great. The pulse of the nation is not great. So I'm wondering why, of all allies, they decide that this is the right time to throw this in, no matter how good or bad it is. I'll
With
say this.
the chairman from.
No, I'm coming in this. I don't mind who we are talking parliament here, the government that introduces it.
So I'm just
But you see,
cautioning you.
there is
I'm
a
just
premise.
cautioning you.
There's a premise to this.
I stayed away
right?
from that.
There's a premise to this and a whole build up to this. If you have a presidential convoy where there's a whole vehicle dedicated to carrying the chair of the president to sit at state functions and across the length and breadth of the country.
Is that the case?
I'm coming in. No, we are talking about convoys.
Mahama
here.
did the same.
Can
So
you give me the
let's
chance
not
to
go
talk?
there. Let's not go there.
Let's allow
So
him.
Mahama did the
if you
same.
have-
Let's allow him.
If you have presidential
Don't go there.
convoys where there's a whole vehicle dedicated to carrying the chair of the president, crisscrossing the length and breadth of the country in state events and private events, people would have sentiments against such an ally. If you have a vice president or a certain vice president who is now seeking to be president, who will deceptively fly on a military chopper to Kumasi and ride a bus to Menchia with a long siren of V8s following him to prove modesty, people would see through this and have issues with it.
Talk about the ally.
That is what is building up here. In any case, let's look at it. What engagement went into the ally? For example, let's talk, what is the minimum to which a political convoy can carry? Right? I'm just trying to say VVIP. And by VVIP, I'm referring to maybe President, Vice, and Speaker of Parliament at that level. If you look at it from a security point of view, right, you would have what they call the advanced team, right? The second vehicle may be the attack team. Then you would have the VIP or the VVIP. Then before that, maybe another vehicle for aids. Then the final one is a decoy. So for a president or possibly a vice president, we're not
Or
talking,
ministers.
I'm coming. I'll come to that. We're not talking of not more than 5 vehicles if we're to go strictly by the security setup and what it ought to be. Any other minister whatsoever would meet the president.
ambulance?
I'm coming. Would meet the president. That's what I said.
protocol
there's-
vehicle.
Yeah, or protocol vehicle. And you have an advanced team that goes ahead even. So all of that, bar all of these, you may probably just have 7 vehicles maximum. That's plus the ambulance and all of that and a motorcade. So now you ask yourself, even without the ally, is this not happening? De facto, it's happening. Are the citizenry complaining about it? Right. In other jurisdictions, if they say an American president is coming into Ghana today, would have a lockdown in the city. You'd see the convoys and what have you in terms of protection, and the state agency would have to justify why that is happening. So are we trying to formalize what is already happening? We have some CEOs, without mentioning names, of private enterprises in this country that runs around with motorcades.
Yeah, but that's wrong.
I'm
the
saying.
motorcade would mean that they've sought permission from the police, which is okay.
But I'm coming in with all of this. So I'm saying, what is the rationale? Are you trying to sort of legitimize what is already happening? Why are we introducing this ally? What is the problem? Because this is already happening. Okay? What would it curb? Does that mean that, okay, when it's legislated, there would be more people using it or less people using it? So the rationale ought to be communicated. And I think that Parliament failed in communicating the rationale of this ally.
Agreed.
At a time when the pulse of the nation is not great, because there's economic woes happening, right? Sporadic prices, fuel prices increasing on a quarterly or even monthly basis. So if people are feeling this, and the most important law you think to bring to fore or to Parliament to pass is an ally, when there are pending affirmative action bills before Parliament, why are you not prioritizing all of these? So that is the temperature of the country that is
see.
reflected.
So Parliament didn't do a good job. Parliament didn't engage enough.
Stakeholder engagement at all.
They didn't engage
But again, they
enough and all of
should
that.
come clear to say what problem would this solve. Is it that it's going to reduce the abuse of it or not? Or
to make them more punctual.
Yeah.
To make the MPs and
So we need
people,
sirens to be punctual.
You know, so
As a
that's
nation.
part of the
That's a-
argument. You
so
have them
see,
be ambitious.
these-
Well, he explained
no,
at the
I'm
time
coming
there
on.
are
No, but
multiple meetings.
these bring a lot of comparison that sometimes are needless, because you hear some people say, okay, well, in Denmark or in the Netherlands,
They
the
ride
prime
bicycles.
minister rides a bicycle, which is symbolic in nature, right? I'm not trying to say the law is bad or whatsoever without us having a real interrogation of it. But as of now, the timing in itself is wrong.
So the timing is
The
wrong.
timing is
Parliament
wrong.
did enough
There's
engagement.
poor stakeholder engagement in it, and they haven't communicated effectively in what problem indeed this is solving.
Thank you.
All right, great. So let me,
Thank you.
Franklin, you have the final word on this. People power, people have won. I know you are for punctuality, etc. Would it hurt if a member of parliament, for example, is given the privilege to use a siren, so he's at meetings on good time? Saturdays they are busy, attending funerals, wakekeepings, etc. Maybe another day they will have to be in parliament to attend to the business of the state. Did the public overreact, you know, on this matter, or you think it was apt?
Well, I think the matter is settled. I think the MPs themselves have come out. I think the minority came out to say they were not part of it, and I think the matter is clear. So clearly speaking, the youth explosion, the arise, what's it called? The youth anger that was expressed in Kenya seems to have is advancing, and any politician who doesn't wake up and smell the coffee would definitely have X on his or her face, given the kinds of legislation that it was. I think this is the beginning of, I hope it is sustained, where we citizens take a good look at most of the bills that are passed in Parliament and then bring them to the fore. As I said, I was happy to have been the first person to put this earlier on my Facebook page. I didn't add in the comments, and eventually it has led to what it led to, and I'm happy. I think we should go and I'll make it a good practice now to be looking out for some bills in Parliament like that, and then bring out some of these absurdities and see how we can now solve it, even before it escalates to this level.
Very well. Thanks so much. That's Franklin Kujo. That's how we conclude today's edition of the program.
He owes me lunch.
Franklin, the lunch is still outstanding. I
Yes.
don't know why you do
At
that.
Labadi Beach.
Bribery and corruption.
Franklin, there's a consensus here that it must be a Labadi.
And Boavi is alleging bribery and corruption. Anyway, so that's how we conclude today's edition of the program. You heard
But Salam,
Franklin
what's
Kujo.
the Daily Graphic turning into? What is Kube fights? It like a tabloid.
No, but it's PNC
headline. I mean, come on,
opposing
the Daily
PNP.
Graphic, this one
you know,
it's
well,
DNA
we'll deal with that on another
yeah,
day.
come on.
So,
I've been on them for
Franklin
them to be
Kujo, president of Imani Africa, the one speaking, who is raising issues about many things, is Dr. Khalid, Sharif Mahmoud Khalid, associate professor of accounting and finance, a member of the NDC communication, economic and finance team. Of course, Yabobia Samoa, campaign strategist for Movement for Change, former MP for my constituency, Adenta.
Former communication for the MPP.
It's well decorated.
Yes,
former communication director of the MPP. That's important.
Very important.
He seems to have left a very big vacuum in the communications directorate of the NDC.
I don't know about that.
That one I'll give
Dr.
it to you.
Adewako Kisi is a member of parliament for Anyaso too. And, so these have been our guests. Thank you so much for doing the listening and the viewing. My name is Selom. I don't know. Catch you same time next week for yet another exciting edition. Have a good afternoon.